The House will come to order. Prayer by the chaplain.
Members, on this Mother's Day weekend, we pause to think of our mothers, both those who are with us and those who have passed on. Will you pray with me? God, today we are grateful to be in this place, to do the work that you've set before us to do. The opportunity to serve and represent the people of Minnesota is a privilege and a responsibility that we do not take for granted. We're in the last weeks of a session, and it looks completely different than any of us would have expected, yet there's still important work for us to do. God, we ask for your healing for those fighting the battle of COVID-19. We ask that you would comfort the families that have lost loved ones during this time. We ask that you would be the provider for our businesses that are struggling. We ask that you would bring peace to people who are isolated during this time of physical distancing. Please give wisdom to our governor and to our president as they lead through these uncommon times. God, I ask for your blessing over my colleagues here in the House. Protect them and their families, and give each of us the strength to finish strong. Thank you for the dedicated staff that work tirelessly and support us in so many ways. We are encouraged by the words from the prophet Isaiah. So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. In your precious name we pray. Amen.
The chaplain for today is Representative Lisa Demuth from District 13A, Cold Spring, Minnesota. Pledge of Allegiance. Please remain standing and recite the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. As the clerk takes the roll, please state your name, your city, and present.
Acom.
Acom, St. Paul, present.
Acom, St. Paul, present. Albright.
Albright, Prior Lake, present.
Albright, Prior Lake, present. Anderson.
Anderson, Barsness Township, present.
Anderson, Barsness Township, present. Baker. Backer.
Backer, Browns Valley, present.
Backer, Browns Valley, present. Bonner. Bonner, St. Paul, present. Barr. Barr, St. Paul, present. Baker.
Baker, Wilmer, present.
Baker, Wilmer, present. Becker, Finn.
Becker Finn, St. Paul, present.
Becker, Finn, St. Paul, present. Bennett.
Bennett, Albert Lee, present.
Bennett, Albert Lee, present. Bernardi.
Bernardi, St. Paul, present.
Bernardi, St. Paul, present. Bierman.
Bierman, St. Paul, present.
Bierman, St. Paul, present. Bow.
Bow, St. Paul, present.
Bow, St. Paul, present. Brand.
Brand, St. Paul, present.
Brand, St. Paul, present. Cantrell.
Cantrell, St. Paul, present.
Cantrell, St. Paul, present. Carlson A.
Carlson A, St. Paul, present.
Carlson A, St. Paul, present. Carlson L. Carlson L. Christensen.
Christensen, St. Paul, present.
Christensen, St. Paul, present. Claflin.
Claflin, St. Paul, present.
Claflin, St. Paul, present. Considine.
Considine, Mankato, present.
Considine, Mankato, present. Daniels.
Daniels, Faribault, present.
Daniels, Faribault, present. Doubt. Doubt. Davids.
David's, Preston, present.
Davids, Preston, present. Davney.
Dabney, St. Paul, present.
Davney, St. Paul, present. Dehn. Dehn, St. Paul, present. Demuth. Demuth, St. Paul, present. Detmer.
Detmer, Forest Lake, present.
Detmer, Forest Lake, present. Drazkowski.
Drazkowski, Winona, present.
Drazkowski, Winona, present. Eklund.
Eklund, International Falls, present.
Eklund, International Falls, present. Edelson. Edelson, St. Paul, present. Elkins.
Elkins, St. Paul, present.
Elkins, St. Paul, present. Erickson.
Erickson, Princeton Township, present.
Erickson, Princeton Township, present. Fabian.
Fabian, Roseau, present.
Fabian, Roseau, present. Fisher.
Fisher, St. Paul, present.
Fisher, St. Paul, present. Franzen.
Franson, Alexandria Township, present.
Franzen, Alexandria Township, present. Freiberg.
Freiberg, St. Paul, present.
Freiberg, St. Paul, present. Garofalo.
Garofalo, Lakeville, present.
Garofalo, Lakeville, present. Gomez.
Gomez, St. Paul, present.
Gomez, St. Paul, present. Green.
Green, Monoman County, present.
Green, Monoman County, present. Grossel.
Grossel, St. Paul, present.
Grossel, St. Paul, present. Gruenhagen.
Gruenhagen, Glencoe, present.
Gruenhagen, Glencoe, present. Gunther.
Gunther, Fairmont, present.
Gunther, Fairmont, present. Haley.
Haley, Red Wings, present.
Haley, Red Wing, present. Halverson. Halverson, St. Paul, present. Hamilton.
Hamilton, Mountain Lake, present.
Hamilton, Mountain Lake, present. Hanson.
Hanson, St. Paul, present.
Hanson, St. Paul, present. Hassan.
Hassan, St. Paul, present.
Hassan, St. Paul, present. Hausman.
Hausman, St. Paul, present.
Hausman, St. Paul, present. Heinrich.
Heinrich, Anoka, present.
Heinrich, Anoka, present. Heinzman. Heinzman, St. Paul, present. Herr.
Her, St. Paul, present.
Herr, St. Paul, present. Hertos.
Hertos in beautiful Greenfield, present.
Hertos, Greenfield, present. Hornstein.
Hornstein, Minneapolis, present.
Hornstein, Minneapolis, present. Howard.
Howard, St. Paul, present.
Howard, St. Paul, present. Hewitt.
Hewitt, St. Paul, present.
Hewitt, St. Paul, present. Johnson.
Johnson, Isanti Township, present.
Johnson, Isanti Township, present. Jordan.
Jordan, St. Paul, present.
Jordan, St. Paul, present. Jurgens.
Jurgens, Cottage Grove, present.
Jurgens, Cottage Grove, present. Keel.
Keel, Hammond Township, present.
Keel, Hammond Township, present. Cleveland.
Cleveland, St. Paul, present.
Cleveland, St. Paul, present. Cagle.
Cagle, St. Paul, present.
Cagle, St. Paul, present. Kotyza-Witthuhn. Kotyza-Witthuhn, St. Paul, present. Kosnick.
Kosnick, the City of Lakeville, present.
Kosnick, Lakeville, present. Creshaw.
Creshaw, Little Falls, present.
Creshaw, Little Falls, present. Kunesh-Podine. Kunesh-Podine, St. Paul, present. Lehman.
Lehman, Cohasset, present.
Lehman, Cohasset, present. Lee. Lee, St. Paul, present. Lesch.
Lesch, Mitchell, present.
Lesch, St. Paul, present. Liebling.
Liebling, Rochester, present.
Liebling, Rochester, present. Lean.
Lean, Moorhead, present.
Lean, Moorhead, present. Lilly.
Lily, St. Paul, present.
Lilly, St. Paul, present. Lippert.
Lippert, St. Paul, present.
Lippert, St. Paul, present. Lislegard.
Lislegard, Aurora, present.
Lislegard, Aurora, present. Long.
Long, St. Paul, present.
Long, St. Paul, present. Lucero.
Lucero, Maple Grove, Ben Rogers, Ben Dayton, present.
Lucero, Maple Grove, present. Lewick.
Lewick, Aiken, present.
Lewick, Aiken, present. Mahoney.
Mahoney, St. Paul, present.
Mahoney, St. Paul, present. Mann, excused. Mariani.
Mariani, St. Paul, present.
Mariani, St. Paul, present. Marquardt.
Marquardt, Dilworth, present.
Marquardt, Dilworth, present. Mason.
Mason, St. Paul, present.
Mason, St. Paul, present. McDonald.
McDonald, Delano, present.
McDonald, Delano, present. Mecklin.
Macklin, Clear Lake, present.
Mecklin, Clear Lake, present. Miller.
Miller, Princeburg, present.
Miller, Princeburg, present. Moeller.
Moeller, St. Paul, present.
Moeller, St. Paul, present. Moran.
Moran, St. Paul, present.
Moran, St. Paul, present. Morrison. Morrison, St. Paul, present. Munson.
Munson, Lincoln Township, present.
Munson, Lincoln Township, present. Murphy.
Murphy, Hermantown, present.
Murphy, Hermantown, present. Nash. Nash, excuse. Nelson M.
Nelson M., St. Paul, present.
Nelson M., St. Paul, present. Nelson N.
Nelson N., Arlone Township, present.
Nelson N., Arlo Township, present. New. New, St. Paul, present. Noor.
Noor, St. Paul, present.
Noor, St. Paul, present. Nornis.
Norris, Fergus Falls, present.
Nornis, Fergus Falls, present. Novotny.
Novotny, Elk River, present.
Novotny, Elk River, present. O'Driscoll. O'Driscoll, St. Paul, present. Olson.
Olson, Duluth, present.
Olson, Duluth, present. O'Neill.
O'Neill, Maple Lake, present.
O'Neill, Maple Lake, present. Pulowski.
Pulowski, St. Paul, present.
Pulowski, St. Paul, present. Purcell.
Purcell, St. Paul, present.
Purcell, St. Paul, present. Petersburg.
Petersburg, Waseca, present.
Petersburg, Waseca, present. Pearson.
Pearson, Rochester Township, present.
Pearson, Rochester Township, present. Pinto.
Pinto, St. Paul, present.
Pinto, St. Paul, present. Poppy.
Poppy, St. Paul, present.
Poppy, St. Paul, present. Poston.
Poston, Lakeshore, present.
Poston, Lakeshore, present. Pryor.
Pryor, St. Paul, present.
Pryor, St. Paul, present. Quam.
Guam, Byron, present.
Quam, Byron, present. Richardson. Richardson, St. Paul, present. Robbins. Robbins, St. Paul, present. Runbeck. Runbeck, St. Paul, present. Sandell.
Sandell, St. Paul, present.
Sandell, St. Paul, present. Sandsted.
Samstead, Hibbing, present.
Sandsted, Hibbing, present. Sauke.
Sauke, Rochester, present.
Sauke, Rochester, present. Schumacher.
Schumacher, Laverne, present.
Schumacher, Laverne, present. Schultz.
Schultz, Duluth, present.
Schultz, Duluth, present. Scott. Scott, St. Paul, present. Stevenson.
Stevenson, St. Paul, present.
Stevenson, St. Paul, present. Sundin.
Sundin, St. Paul, present.
Sundin, St. Paul, present. Swazinski.
Swazinski, Taunton, present.
Swazinski, Toffin, present. Tabke.
Cadkey, St. Paul, present.
Tabke, St. Paul, present. Tice.
Tice, St. Cloud, present.
Tice, St. Cloud, present. Torkelson.
Torkelston, Hanska, present.
Torkelson, Hanska, present. Erdahl.
Erdahl, Acton Township, present.
Erdahl, Acton Township, present. Vang.
Vang, St. Paul, present.
Vang, St. Paul, present. Vogel.
Vogel, Elko, Newmarket, present.
Vogel, Elko, Newmarket, present. Wagenius.
Wagenius, St. Paul, present.
Wagenius, St. Paul, present. Waslowick.
Waslowick, St. Paul, present.
Waslowick, St. Paul, present. West.
West, Blaine, present.
West, Blaine, present. Winkler. Winkler, St. Paul, present. Walgamot.
Walgamot, St. Paul, present.
Walgamot, St. Paul, present. Zhang J.
Xiong J, St. Paul, present.
Zhang J. St. Paul, present. Zhang T.
Zhang T, St. Paul, present.
Zhang T. St. Paul, present. Joachim.
Joachim, St. Paul, present.
Joachim, St. Paul, present. Speaker Hartman. Speaker Hartman, St. Paul, present. Carlson L.
Carlson L. Carlson L, St. Paul, present.
Carlson L. St. Paul, present. Doubt. Doubt, St. Paul, present.
A quorum is present. The clerk will read the journal of the preceding day.
Journal of the House, 91st Session, 2020, 89th day, St. Paul, Minnesota, Thursday, May 7th, 2020.
If there is no objection, further reading of the journal will be dispensed with, and the journal will be approved as corrected by the chief clerk. Hearing no objection, the journal is approved as corrected by the chief clerk. Comparison reports. A copy of this order of business is online. If there is no objection, the reports or the motions will prevail. Hearing no objection, the motions prevail and the substitutions will be made. Reports of standing committees and divisions. A copy of this order of business is online. If there's no objection, the reports will be adopted. Hearing no objection, the reports are adopted. Second reading of House files.
Second reading House File number 2129.
Second reading.
Second reading House File 3194.
Second reading.
Second reading House File 3195.
Second reading.
Second reading House File 3341.
Second reading.
Second reading House File 3737.
Second reading.
Second reading House File 4285.
Second reading.
Second reading House File 4490.
Second reading.
Second reading House File 4601.
Second reading.
Second reading House File 4645.
Second reading. Second reading of Senate files.
Second reading Senate File 2466.
Second reading.
Second reading Senate File 3357.
Second reading.
Second reading Senate File 4073.
Second reading. Introduction of bills. The following House files have been offered for introduction today. The chief clerk will report the House files and give them their first reading.
Introduction and first reading of House Files 4646 through 4659.
First reading, House Files 4646 through 4659. Messages from the Senate.
Message from the Senate. Madam Speaker, I hereby announce the passage by the Senate of the following House file herewith returned as amended by the Senate, in which amendments the concurrence of the House is respectfully requested. House File number 745, an act relating to marriage. The message is signed Cal R. Ludeman, Secretary of the Senate. Her moves that the House concur in the Senate amendments to House File number 745 and that the bill be repassed as amended by the Senate.
Representative Herr, to your motion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, as you may recall, the House unanimously passed House File 745, a bill that eliminates child marriages in May of last year. This is an important bill, and I'm so glad that the Senate also thought it would be as well. I want to just take a minute just to say thank you, a few thank yous. First, I want to thank Senator Pappas, the Senate author. This bill has been a labor of love for her long before I got here. Thank you to Dr. Ellen Kennedy, who has been a champion for this work. Jim Shaw, who continued to write about this issue and bring it visibility. Brady and Unchained at Last, who know firsthand why this bill is so critical. And all the advocates and organizers who persisted when it seemed the bill was not going forward. When the bill passed the Senate this week, I received a note from a friend that said, "Thank you. You know this bill is personal for me." My response, "I know," and a heart emoji. Members, the only difference is that between the Senate bill and ours is the effective date. As the bill is the same as last year, I urge support of this bill. Know that with your green vote today, we are not just sending heart emojis to those who've been impacted and hurt because we couldn't protect past children. But we are sending a message that says all children deserve the opportunity for the life that they should have instead of being married off as children. So vote green. Thank you.
Any further discussion to the motion? Representative Herr is moving that the House concur in the Senate amendments to House File 745 and that the bill be repassed as amended by the Senate. All those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails. The clerk will give the bill its third reading as amended by the Senate.
Third reading, House File number 745, as amended by the Senate.
Third reading, discussion to the bill on passage, House File 745. Any discussion? Hearing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll on the passage of House File 745 with the Senate amendments.
Acom.
Acom, aye.
Acom, aye. Albright.
Albright, aye.
Albright, aye. Anderson.
Anderson, aye.
Anderson, aye. Backer. Backer, aye. Bonner. Bonner, aye. Barr. Barr, aye. Baker.
Baker, aye.
Baker, aye. Becker, Finn.
Becker Finn, aye.
Becker, Finn, aye. Bennett.
Bennett, aye.
Bennett, aye. Bernardi.
Bernardi, aye.
Bernardi, aye. Bierman.
Bierman, aye.
Bierman, aye. Bow. Bow, aye. Brand.
Brand, aye.
Brand, aye. Cantrell.
Cantrell, aye.
Cantrell, aye. Carlson, A.
Carlson, A, aye.
Carlson, A, aye. Carlson, L.
Carlson L, aye.
Carlson, L, aye. Christensen.
Christensen, aye.
Christensen, aye. Claflin.
Claflin, aye.
Claflin, aye. Considine.
Considine, aye.
Considine, aye. Daniels.
Daniels, aye.
Daniels, aye. Doubt. Doubt, aye. Davids.
David's, aye.
Davids, aye. Davney.
Dabney, aye.
Davney, aye. Dehn. Dehn, aye. Damath. Damath, aye. Detmer.
Detmer, aye.
Detmer, aye. Dreskowski.
Ruskowski, aye.
Dreskowski, aye. Eklund.
Eklund, aye.
Eklund, aye. Edelson. Edelson, aye. Elkins.
Elkins, aye.
Elkins, aye. Erickson.
Erickson, aye.
Erickson, aye. Fabian.
Fabian, aye.
Fabian, aye. Fisher.
Fisher, aye.
Fisher, aye. Franzen.
Franson, aye.
Franzen, aye. Freiberg.
Freiberg votes yes.
Freiberg, aye. Garofalo.
Garofalo, yes.
Garofalo, aye. Gomez.
Gomez, aye.
Gomez, aye. Green.
Green, aye.
Green, aye. Grossel.
Grossel, aye.
Grossel, aye. Grunhagen.
Gruenhagen, aye.
Grunhagen, aye. Gunther.
Gunther, aye.
Gunther, aye. Haley.
Haley, aye.
Haley, aye. Halverson. Halverson, aye. Hamilton.
Hamilton, aye.
Hamilton, aye. Hanson.
Hanson, aye.
Hanson, aye. Hassan.
Hassan, aye.
Hassan, aye. Hausman.
Hausman, aye.
Hausman, aye. Heinrich.
Heinrich, aye.
Heinrich, aye. Heinzman. Heinzman, aye. Her.
Her, aye.
Her, aye. Hertos.
Hertos, aye.
Hertos, aye. Hornstein.
Hornstein, aye.
Hornstein, aye. Howard.
Howard, aye.
Howard, aye. Hewitt.
Hewitt, aye.
Hewitt, aye. Johnson.
Johnson, aye.
Johnson, aye. Jordan.
Jordan, aye.
Jordan, aye. Jurgens.
Aye.
Jurgens, aye. Keel.
Keel, aye.
Keel, aye. Cleavorn.
Cleaborn, aye.
Cleavorn, aye. Cagle.
Cagle, aye.
Cagle, aye. Kotyza-Witthuhn. Kotyza-Witthuhn. Kosnick.
Kosnick, aye.
Kosnick, aye. Kreshaw.
Grisha, aye.
Kreshaw, aye. Kunish-Podine. Kunish-Podine, aye. Lehman.
Lehman, aye.
Lehman, aye. Lee. Lee, aye. Lesch.
Lesch, aye.
Lesch, aye. Liebling.
Liebling, aye.
Liebling, aye. Lean.
Lean, aye.
Lean, aye. Lilly.
Lily, aye.
Lilly, aye. Lippert.
Lippert, aye.
Lippert, aye. Lislegard.
Lislegard, aye.
Lislegard, aye. Long.
Long, aye.
Long, aye. Lucero.
Lucero, yes.
Lucero, aye. Lewick.
Lewick, aye.
Lewick, aye. Mahoney.
Aye.
Mahoney, aye. Mann. Excused. Mariani.
Mariani, aye.
Mariani, aye. Marquardt.
Marquardt, aye.
Marquardt, aye. Mason.
Mason, aye.
Mason, aye. McDonald.
McDonald, aye.
McDonald, aye. Mecklen.
Mecklen, aye.
Mecklen, aye. Miller.
Miller, aye.
Miller, aye. Moeller.
Moeller, aye.
Moeller, aye. Moran.
Moran, aye.
Moran, aye. Morrison. Morrison, aye. Munson.
Munson, aye.
Munson, aye. Murphy.
Murphy, aye.
Murphy, aye. Nash. Excuse. Nelson, M.
Nelson M. I.
Nelson, M, aye. Nelson, N.
Nelson N, aye.
Nelson, N, aye. New. New, aye. Nor.
Nor, aye.
Nor, aye. Nornis.
Nornis, aye.
Nornis, aye. Novotny.
Novotny, aye.
Novotny, aye. O'Driscoll. O'Driscoll, aye. Olson.
Olson, aye.
Olson, aye. O'Neill.
O'Neill, aye.
O'Neill, aye. Pulowski.
Pulowski, aye.
Pulowski, aye. Purcell.
Purcell, aye.
Purcell, aye. Petersburg.
Petersburg, aye.
Petersburg, aye. Pearson.
Pearson, aye.
Pearson, aye. Pinto.
Pinto, aye.
Pinto, aye. Poppy.
Poppy, aye.
Poppy, aye. Poston.
Poston, aye.
Poston, aye. Pryor.
Pryor, aye.
Pryor, aye. Quam.
Quam, aye.
Quam, aye. Richardson. Richardson, aye. Robbins. Robbins, aye. Runbeck. Runbeck, aye. Sandell.
Sandell, aye.
Sandell, aye. Sandsted.
Sandsted, aye.
Sandsted, aye. Sauke.
Sauk, aye.
Sauke, aye. Schumacher.
Schumacher, aye.
Schumacher, aye. Schultz.
Schultz, aye.
Schultz, aye. Scott. Scott, aye. Stevenson.
Stevenson, aye.
Stevenson, aye. Sundin.
Sundin, aye.
Sundin, aye. Swazinski.
Swazinski, aye.
Swazinski, aye. Tabke.
Tabke, aye.
Tabke, aye. Tice.
Tice, aye.
Tice, aye. Torkelson.
Torkelson, aye.
Torkelson, aye. Erdahl.
Erdahl, aye.
Erdahl, aye. Vang.
Vang, aye.
Vang, aye. Vogel.
Vogel, aye.
Vogel, aye. Wagenius.
Wagenius, aye.
Wagenius, aye. Wozlowick.
Wozlowick, aye.
Wozlowick, aye. West.
West, aye.
West, aye. Winkler. Winkler, aye. Wogamot.
Wogamot, aye.
Wogamot, aye. Zhang Jie.
Xiongji, aye.
Zhang Jie, aye. Zhang Ti.
Zhang T, aye.
Zhang Ti, aye. Joachim.
Joachim, aye.
Joachim, aye. Speaker Hartman. Speaker Hartman, aye. Kotyza-Witthuhn.
Kotyza-Witthuhn. Kotyza-Witthuhn, aye.
Kotyza-Witthuhn, aye.
There being 132 ayes and 0 nays, the bill is repassed as amended by the Senate, and its title agreed to.
Message from the Senate. Madam Speaker, I hereby announce the passage by the Senate of the following House file, herewith returned as amended by the Senate, in which amendments to concurrence of the House is respectfully requested. House file number 3429, an act relating to elections. Nelson M. moves that the House concur in the Senate amendments to House file number 3429, and that the bill be repassed as amended by the Senate.
Representative Nelson, on your motion to concur in the Senate amendments to House File 3429. Representative
Chair.
Nelson.
Madam Speaker, the Senate did a couple of minor amendments to this. One was inserting the language from Senator Clausen's bill, Senate File 4414, which basically is encouraging municipalities to not choose schools as polling places, but then giving them the ability, if there are no other places, to be able to use those. The second one was they moved the dates after the election for the additional time to count votes. We had 3 days after the election, and they lowered it to 2. And Madam Chair, we should accept the amendments and pass this bill on.
Any discussion on the Nelson motion that the House concur in the Senate amendments to House File 3429 and that the bill be repassed as amended by the Senate? Representative Dehn.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. The concurrence that Chair Nelson just spoke about, as a reminder, is what was negotiated between members in the House, chairs, and representatives from the minority party and the Secretary of State's office. And this is a good bill. This is a bill that Minnesotans should be proud of. It's not the ideal bill, and I think it's not the ideal bill on both sides. I'm really excited that the Senate has taken up pretty much all of our bill with a few minor changes so that individuals can vote this coming August and November and feel as though they are safe. And I just want to reiterate that the provisions that allow for people to do no excuse absentee voting from their home is probably the safest way that we can vote in this upcoming election. And I encourage all Minnesotans to do that. And the reason I do that is it lessens the danger for those working at the polls and for voters this coming August and November. So with that, Madam Speaker, I'm excited that we are concurring, and I would ask all members to support the concurrence.
Any further discussion on the motion to concur? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails. The clerk will give the bill its third reading as amended by the Senate.
Third reading, House File Number 3429, as amended by the Senate.
Third reading as amended by the Senate. Discussion to passage of the bill. Seeing,
Madam Speaker?
Yes, Representative Nelson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just wanted to say, I want to thank all the people that worked hard on this bill, from our nonpartisan staff to our partisan staff on our State Government Finance Committee, Ryan Cook and Jim Geldman. I also want to thank Representative Dehn and especially Representative Albright, Representative Nash, to coming up to a mutually agreed upon bill that we can all support, and the Secretary of State's office for being able to bend on a few of the things, and so we can come up with a bipartisan bill. And with that, Madam Speaker, I urge everyone to vote yes.
Any further discussion? The clerk will take the roll on the bill as amended by the Senate.
Acom.
Acom, aye.
Acom, aye. Albright.
Albright, aye.
Albright, aye. Anderson.
Anderson, aye.
Anderson, aye. Backer.
Backer, aye.
Backer, aye. Bonner. Bonner, aye. Barr. Barr, aye. Baker.
Baker, aye.
Baker, aye. Becker, Finn.
Becker Finn, aye.
Becker, Finn, aye. Bennett.
Bennett, aye.
Bennett, aye. Bernardi.
Bernardi, aye.
Bernardi, aye. Bierman.
Bierman, aye.
Bierman, aye. Bull. Bull, aye. Brand.
Brand, aye.
Brand, aye. Cantrell.
Cantrell, aye.
Cantrell, aye. Carlson, A.
Carlson, A, aye.
Carlson, A, aye. Carlson, L.
Carlson L, aye.
Carlson, L, aye. Christensen.
Christensen, aye.
Christensen, aye. Claflin.
Claflin, aye.
Claflin, aye. Considine.
Considine, aye.
Considine, aye. Daniels.
Daniels, aye.
Daniels, aye. Doubt. Doubt, aye. Davids.
David's, aye.
Davids, aye. Davney.
Daphne, aye.
Davney, aye. Dehn. Dehn, aye. Damath. Damath, aye. Detmer.
Detmer, aye.
Detmer, aye. Drazkowski.
Drazkowski, no.
Drazkowski, no. Eklund.
Eklund, aye.
Eklund, aye. Edelson. Edelson, aye. Elkins.
Elkins, aye.
Elkins, aye. Erickson.
Erickson, I.
Erickson, aye. Fabian.
Fabian, aye.
Fabian, aye. Fisher.
Fisher, aye.
Fisher, aye. Franson.
Branson, no.
Franzen, no. Freiberg.
Freiberg votes yes.
Freiberg, aye. Garofalo.
Garofalo, yes.
Garofalo, aye. Gomez.
Gomez, aye.
Gomez, aye. Green.
Aye.
Green,
aye.
Green, aye. Grossel.
Russell, aye.
Grossel, aye. Gruenhagen.
Aye.
Gruenhagen, aye. Gunther.
Aye.
Gunther, aye. Haley.
Aye.
Haley, aye. Halverson. Halverson, aye. Hamilton.
Hamilton, aye.
Hamilton, aye. Hanson.
Hanson, aye.
Hanson, aye. Hassan.
Hassan, aye.
Hassan, aye. Hausman.
Hausman, I.
Hausman, aye. Heinrich.
Heinrich, aye.
Heinrich, aye. Heinzman. Heinzman, aye. Her.
Her, aye.
Her, aye. Hertos.
Hertos, no.
Hertos, no. Hornstein.
Hornstein, aye.
Hornstein, aye. Howard.
Howard, aye.
Howard, aye. Hewitt.
Hewitt, aye.
Hewitt, aye. Johnson.
Johnson, aye.
Johnson, aye. Jordan.
Jordan, aye.
Jordan, aye. Jurgens.
Jurgens, aye.
Jurgens, aye. Keel.
Keel, aye.
Keel, aye. Cleavorn.
Seaborn, aye.
Cleavorn, aye. Cagill.
Cagle, aye.
Cagill, aye. Kotyza-Witthuhn.
Kotyza-Witthuhn, aye.
Kotyza-Witthuhn, aye. Kosnick.
Kosnick, aye.
Kosnick, aye. Kreshaw.
Kreshaw, aye.
Kreshaw, aye. Kunish-Podine. Kunish-Podine, aye. Lehman.
Lehman, aye.
Lehman, aye. Lee. Lee, aye. Lesch.
Lesch, aye.
Lesch, aye. Liebling.
Liebling, aye.
Liebling, aye. Lean.
Lean, aye.
Lean, aye. Lilly.
Lily, aye.
Lilly, aye. Lippert.
Lippert, aye.
Lippert, aye. Listlegard.
Listlegard, aye.
Listlegard, aye. Long.
Long, aye.
Long, aye. Lucero.
Lucero, no.
Lucero, no. Lewick.
Lewick, aye.
Lewick, aye. Mahoney.
Mahoney, aye.
Mahoney, aye. Mann. Excuse me. Mariani.
Mariani, aye.
Mariani, aye. Markward.
Markward, aye.
Markward, aye. Mason.
Mason, aye.
Mason, aye. McDonald.
McDonald, no.
McDonald, no. Mecklen.
Mecklen, nay.
Mecklen, no. Miller.
Miller, aye.
Miller, aye. Moeller.
Moeller, aye.
Moeller, aye. Moran.
Moran, aye.
Moran, aye. Morrison. Morrison, aye. Munson.
Munson, no.
Munson, no. Murphy.
Murphy, aye.
Murphy, aye. Nash. Excused. Nelson M.
Nelson M., aye.
Nelson M, aye. Nelson N.
Nelson N, aye.
Nelson N, aye. New. New, aye. Nor.
Nor, aye.
Nor, aye. Nornis.
Nornis, aye.
Nornis, aye. Novotny.
Novotny, aye.
Novotny, aye. O'Driscoll. O'Driscoll, aye. Olson.
Olson, aye.
Olson, aye. O'Neill.
O'Neill, aye.
O'Neill, aye. Pulowski.
Pulowski, aye.
Pulowski, aye. Purcell.
Purcell, aye.
Purcell, aye. Petersburg.
Petersburg, aye.
Petersburg, aye. Pearson.
Pearson, aye.
Pearson, aye. Pinto.
Pinto, aye.
Pinto, aye. Poppy.
Poppy, aye.
Poppy, aye. Poston.
Poston, aye.
Poston, aye. Pryor.
Pryor, aye.
Pryor, aye. Quam.
No. Quam, no.
Quam, no. Richardson. Richardson, aye. Robbins. Robbins, aye. Runbeck. Runbeck, no. Sandell.
Sandell, aye.
Sandell, aye. Sandsted.
Sandsted, aye.
Sandsted, aye. Sauke.
Sauke, aye.
Sauke, aye. Schumacher.
Schumacher, aye.
Schumacher, aye. Schultz.
Schultz, aye.
Schultz, aye. Scott. Scott, aye. Stevenson.
Stevenson, aye.
Stevenson, aye. Sundin.
Sundin, aye.
Sundin, aye. Swazinski.
Swazinski, aye.
Swazinski, aye. Tabke.
Tadke, aye.
Tabke, aye. Tice.
Tice, aye.
Tice, aye. Torkelson.
Torkelson, aye.
Torkelson, aye. Erdahl.
Erdahl, aye.
Erdahl, aye. Vang.
Bang, aye.
Vang, aye. Vogel.
Vogel, aye.
Vogel, aye. Wagenius.
Wagenius, aye.
Wagenius, aye. Wozlowick.
Wagenius, aye.
Wozlowick, aye. West.
West, aye.
West, aye. Winkler. Winkler, aye. Wogamot.
Wolf, aye.
Wogamot, aye. Zhang Jie.
Zhong J, aye.
Zhang Jie, aye. Zhang Ti.
Zhang Ti, aye.
Zhang Ti, aye. Joachim.
Joachim, aye.
Joachim, aye. Speaker Hortman. Speaker Hortman, aye. Barr. Barr changes from aye to nay. Right?
There being 122 ayes and 10 nays, the bill is repassed as amended by the Senate and its title agreed to.
Message from the Senate. Madam Speaker, I hereby announce the passage by the Senate of the following Senate files herewith transmitted. Senate file numbers 3255, 3298, and 3560.
First reading of Senate files.
First reading Senate file number 3255, an act relating to public safety. Hornstein moved that Senate file number 3255 and House file number 3494, now on the general register, be referred to the chief clerk for comparison.
Without objection, so ordered.
First reading Senate file number 3298, an act relating to local government. Sauke moved that Senate file number 3298 and House file number 3483, now on the general register, be referred to the chief clerk for comparison.
Without objection, so ordered.
First reading Senate file number 3560, an act relating to human services. The bill is being referred to the Committee on Rules and Legislative Administration.
Calendar for the day. The first bill on the calendar for the day is Senate File 1098. The clerk will report the bill.
Senate file number 1098, number 1 on the calendar for the day, an act relating to health, establishing the Prescription Drug Price Transparency Act, the fourth engrossment.
There are no amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, Senate file number 1098.
Third reading. I recognize the member from Hennepin, the author, Representative Morrison.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, Senate File 1098, the Drug Price Transparency Act, is a bill to bring much-needed transparency to the pricing of prescription drugs. The cost of prescription drugs is high and growing higher, including older drugs and new drugs entering the market. While drug manufacturers create life-changing and life-sustaining medications, These medications are useless if people can't afford them. Drug costs now represent 23 cents of every dollar spent on healthcare, more than inpatient hospital costs. The examples of egregious drug prices are legion, but here are just a few. Insulin. We've heard a lot about the price of insulin. It has nearly tripled since 2002, and the average price of insulin has increased by 64% since January of 2014. Naloxone. This drug is used to reverse opioid overdoses. One manufacturer increased the price by 600% over the last 4 years, from $575 to $4,100 per dose. Copaxone is used to treat multiple sclerosis. When it was brought to market in 1997, it listed for $10,000 annually. Today, it is listed for over $90,000 a year. Daraprim is a treatment for AIDS. The list price for a month's supply, or 60 tablets, is $45,000. Daraprim first made headlines in 2015 when Martin Shkreli acquired the drug and immediately increased the price from $13.50 per pill to about $750 per pill. The EpiPen, which is used to treat severe allergic reactions, is another example. The manufacturer Mylan raised the price of a 2-pack from about $100 to more than $600. These are life-saving or sustaining drugs. Patients can't choose whether or not they want to buy these drugs. They can't shop around for a better deal. They need them to live. The latest round of price increases just happened in January, and prices increased on more than 200 prescription drugs. These steep increases in drug prices harm patients and impact taxpayers who help pay for public programs such as Medicare and Medicaid, which provide drugs to enrollees. Creating more transparency of drug prices is an important first step toward raising awareness of the role of drug prices in healthcare. This bill is supported by a broad coalition of stakeholders. I won't name them all because it's such a long list, but you should have an electronic copy. Suffice it to say, it includes the business community, patient groups, provider groups, unions, and health plans. This bill was included in the HHS Omnibus Bill at the end of 2019. The money was appropriated and is at MDH, but there was disagreement over trade secret language, so it was not enacted. The bill we have since crafted is the result of a lot of stakeholder engagement. We worked with the aforementioned stakeholders as well as representatives of the pharmaceutical industry and the generics. Significant changes were made to strengthen trade secret protections while still requiring transparency. So here's what the bill does. It requires price transparency for 3 categories of drugs: existing drugs, newly acquired drugs, and new drugs. Reporting is similar for existing drugs and newly acquired drugs whose price exceeds $100 for a 30-day supply or a course of treatment less than 30 days. For brand name drugs, where there is an increase in price of greater than or equal to 10% over a 12-month period or 16% over a 24-month period, or for generic drugs where there's an increase of 50% or greater in the price over the previous 12-month period. No later than 60 days after the price increase goes into effect, the manufacturer must submit to the Commissioner of Health the following information: the name of any generic version of the drug available on the market, the introductory price of the drug when it was approved for marketing by the FDA, and the net yearly increase by calendar year in the price of the drug during the previous 5 years. The direct costs incurred by the manufacturer associated with the drug. So the cost to manufacture the drug, the cost to market the drug, including advertising costs, the cost to distribute the drug, the total sales revenue for the drug during the previous 12-month period, the manufacturer's net profit attributable to the drug during the previous 12 months, the total amount of financial assistance the manufacturer has provided through patient assistance programs, if applicable. Any agreement between a manufacturer and another entity contingent upon any delay in offering to market a generic version of the drug. The patent expiration of the drug, if it is still under patent. The name and location of the company that manufactured the drug. If it's a brand name drug, the 10 highest prices paid for the drug during the previous calendar year in any country other than the United States. Newly acquired drugs are also required to submit the price of the drug at acquisition in the calendar year prior to acquisition, the name of the company from which it was acquired, the date of acquisition, and the purchase price, the year the drug was introduced to market, and the price at the time of introduction, And finally, the price over the previous 5 years. Reporting on new prescription drugs is a bit different. For a new brand name drug with a price that is greater than the tier threshold established by CMS for Medicare Part D of $670 for a 30-day supply, or for a generic that exceeds the tier threshold for a 30-day supply and is not at least 15% lower than the reference brand name drug when the generic or biosimilar is launched, the manufacturer must submit to the Commissioner of Health the following information: the price of the drug, whether the FDA granted the new drug a breakthrough therapy designation or a priority review, the direct costs incurred by the manufacturer that are associated with the drug. In other words, the cost to manufacture the drug, the cost to market the drug, including advertising costs, the cost to distribute the drug, the patent expiration date of the drug if it is under patent, and the manufacturer must submit documentation necessary to support the information reported. MDH will review the information and will post the submitted prescription drug price information publicly on the MDH website in an easy-to-read format. The information will not be posted if it is not public data under Section 1302, Subdivision 8A, or is trade secret information under Section 13.37, Subdivision 1, Paragraph B, or is trade secret information under the Federal Defend Trade Secrets Act of 2016. If the manufacturer believes information is trade secret and should be withheld from public disclosure, the manufacturer must describe the legal basis in writing upon submission. If the Commissioner of Health disagrees with the manufacturer's request to withhold information from public disclosure, the Commissioner must give the manufacturer 30 days notice before it will be posted publicly. There will be enforcement and penalties for failure to comply. If the manufacturer fails to submit timely reports, the information required, or inaccurate or incomplete information, the Commissioner may fine the manufacturer up to $10,000 per day to be deposited in the Healthcare Access Fund. Lastly, MDH will submit a report to the legislature annually regarding the effectiveness of the program in promoting transparency, enhancing understanding on pharmaceutical spending trends, and assisting the state and other payers in the management of pharmaceutical costs. Members, this is a pro-patient, pro-consumer bill. We have already seen Minnesotans die because they could not afford their prescription drugs. Prescription drugs do not work if people cannot afford them. We must act to increase transparency in prescription drug pricing, to raise awareness about the role of drug prices and the cost of healthcare, and help drive down those prices. I urge you to vote yes.
Discussion to the bill. Representative Gruenhagen.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Representative Gruenhagen.
Okay, I appreciate Representative Morrison's efforts on this. Obviously, the price of drugs is a concern of all of ours. And I know that the pharmaceutical company is not a bunch of white knights. I'll agree with that. But, I originally was a co-author on this bill, but then I removed my name. Because the more I looked into it, both the bill and also talked to my local independent pharmacies, the more I realized that this probably is a step, an over-regulatory step that might actually hurt patients and restrict access of needed prescription drugs. The pharmaceutical industry already has to report quite a bit of information, and I think that the PBMs are more of a problem than the pharmaceutical companies. There is federal legislation that would address some of the price of drugs as far as pharmaceuticals are concerned. And I think this also is a step in a direction of single payer. Americans for Prosperity sent out a letter indicating so. So, based on my local independent druggist and also a number of other reasons, I think I'm going to have to be a no vote on this. And I encourage other members to vote no also. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Any further discussion to the bill? Hearing none, the clerk will take the roll on Senate File 1098.
Acom.
Acom, aye.
Acom, aye. Albright.
Albright, aye.
Albright, aye. Anderson.
Anderson, aye.
Anderson, aye. Backer.
Backer, aye.
Backer, aye. Bonner. Bonner, aye. Barr. Barr, no. Baker.
Baker, aye.
Baker, aye. Becker, Finn.
Becker Finn, aye.
Becker, Finn, aye. Bennett.
Bennett, aye.
Bennett, aye. Bernardi.
Bernardi, aye.
Bernardi, aye. Bierman.
Bierman, aye.
Bierman, aye. Bow. Bow, aye. Brand.
Brand, aye.
Brand, aye. Cantrell.
Cantrell, aye.
Cantrell, aye. Carlson, A.
Carlson, A, aye.
Carlson, A, aye. Carlson, L.
Carlson, L, aye.
Carlson, L, aye. Christensen.
Christensen, aye.
Christensen, aye. Claflin.
Claflin, aye.
Claflin, aye. Considine.
Considine, aye.
Considine, aye. Daniels.
Daniels, aye.
Daniels, aye. Doubt. Doubt, no. Davids.
Davids, no.
Davids, no. Davney.
Davney, aye.
Davney, aye. Dean. Dean, aye. Damath. Damath, aye. Detmer.
Detmer, aye.
Detmer, aye. Driscollowski.
Driscollowski, no.
Driscollowski, no. Eklund.
Eklund, aye.
Eklund, aye. Edelson. Edelson, aye. Elkins.
Elkins, aye.
Elkins, aye. Erickson.
Erickson, no.
Erickson, no. Fabian.
Fabian, no.
Fabian, no. Fisher.
Fisher, aye.
Fisher, aye. Franzen.
Franson, no.
Franzen, no. Freiberg.
Freiberg votes yes.
Freiberg, aye. Garofalo.
Garofalo, yes.
Garofalo, aye. Gomez.
Gomez, aye.
Gomez, aye. Green.
Green, no.
Green, no. Grossel.
Grossel, nay.
Grossel, no. Gruenhagen.
Gruenhagen, no.
Gruenhagen, no. Gunther.
Gunther, yes.
Gunther, aye. Haley.
Aye.
Haley, aye. Halverson. Halverson, aye. Hamilton.
Hamilton, aye.
Hamilton, aye. Hanson.
Hanson, aye.
Hanson, aye. Hassan.
Hassan, aye.
Hassan, aye. Hausman.
Hausman, aye.
Hausman, aye. Heinrich.
Heinrich, no.
Heinrich, no. Heinzman. Heinzman, no. Her.
Her, aye.
Her, aye. Hertos.
Hertos, no.
Hertos, no. Hornstein.
Hornstein, aye.
Hornstein, aye. Howard.
Howard, aye.
Howard, aye. Hewitt.
Hewitt, aye.
Hewitt, aye. Johnson.
Johnson, no.
Johnson, no. Jordan.
Jordan, aye.
Jordan, aye. Jurgens.
Jurgens, aye.
Jurgens, aye. Keel.
Keel, no.
Keel, no. Cleavorn.
Cleavorn, aye.
Cleavorn, aye. Cagle.
Cagle, aye.
Cagle, aye. Kotyza-Witthuhn.
Kotyza-Witthuhn, aye.
Kotyza-Witthuhn, aye. Kosnick.
Kosnick, no.
Kosnick, no. Kreshaw.
Kreshaw, no.
Kreshaw, no. Kunish-Podine. Kunish-Podine, aye. Lehman.
Lehman, aye.
Lehman, aye. Lee. Lee, aye. Lesch.
Lesch, aye.
Lesch, aye. Liebling.
Liebling, aye.
Liebling, aye. Lean.
Lean, aye.
Lean, aye. Lilly.
Lily, aye.
Lilly, aye. Lippert.
Lippert, aye.
Lippert, aye. Listlegard.
Litzlegard, aye.
Litzlegard, aye. Long.
Long, aye.
Long, aye. Lucero.
Lucero, no.
Lucero, no. Lewick.
Lewick, aye.
Lewick, aye. Mahoney.
Mahoney, aye.
Mahoney, aye. Mann. Excuse. Mariani.
Mariani, aye.
Mariani, aye. Markwart.
Markwart, aye.
Markwart, aye. Mason.
Mason, aye.
Mason, aye. McDonald.
McDonald, no.
McDonald, no. Mecklin.
Mecklen, nay.
Mecklin, no. Miller.
Miller, no.
Miller, no. Moeller.
Moeller, aye.
Moeller, aye. Moran.
Moran, aye.
Moran, aye. Morrison. Morrison, aye. Munson.
Munson, no.
Munson, no. Murphy.
Murphy, aye.
Murphy, aye. Nash. Excuse. Nelson, M.
Nelson M. Aye.
Nelson, M, aye. Nelson, N.
Nelson N, aye.
Nelson, N, aye. New. New, no. Nor.
Nor, aye.
Nor, aye. Nornis.
Nornis, no.
Nornis, no. Novotny.
Novotny, no.
Novotny, no. O'Driscoll. O'Driscoll, no. Olson.
Olson, aye.
Olson, aye. O'Neill.
O'Neill, no.
O'Neill, no. Pulowski.
Pulowski, aye.
Pulowski, aye. Purcell.
Purcell, aye.
Purcell, aye. Petersburg.
Petersburg, aye.
Petersburg, aye. Pearson.
Pearson, aye.
Pearson, aye. Pinto.
Pinto, aye.
Pinto, aye. Poppy.
Poppy, aye.
Poppy, aye. Poston.
Poston, aye.
Poston, aye. Pryor.
Pryor, aye.
Pryor, aye. Quam.
Guam, no.
Quam, no. Richardson. Richardson, aye. Robbins. Robbins, aye. Runbeck. Runbeck, aye. Sandell.
Sandell, aye.
Sandell, aye. Sandsted.
Sandsted, aye.
Sandsted, aye. Sauke.
Sauke, aye.
Sauke, aye. Schumacher.
Schumacher, no.
Schumacher, no. Schultz.
Schultz, aye.
Schultz, aye. Scott. Scott, aye. Stevenson.
Stevenson, aye.
Stevenson, aye. Sundin.
Sundin, aye.
Sundin, aye. Swazinski.
Swazinski, no.
Swazinski, no. Tabke.
Tabke, aye.
Tabke, aye. Tice.
Tice, no.
Tice, no. Torkelson.
Torkelson, no.
Torkelson, no. Erdahl.
Erdahl, aye.
Erdahl, aye. Vang.
Bang, aye.
Vang, aye. Vogel.
Vogel, no.
Vogel, no. Wagenius.
Virginia, aye.
Wagenius, aye. Wozlowick.
Woswillick, aye.
Wozlowick, aye. West.
West, aye.
West, aye. Winkler. Winkler, aye. Walgamot. Walgamot.
Walgamot, aye.
Walgamot, aye. Zhang Jie.
Xiong J, aye.
Zhang Jie, aye. Zhang Ti.
Zhang Ti, aye.
Zhang Ti, aye. Joachim.
Joachim, aye.
Joachim, aye. Speaker Hartman. Speaker Hartman, aye.
There being 99 ayes and 33 nays, Senate file number 1098 passes and its title is agreed to. The next bill on the calendar for the day is House File 331. The clerk will report the bill.
House File number 331, number 2 on the calendar for the day, an act relating to health, adding charter schools to the prohibition of tobacco in schools, the third engrossment.
There are no amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, House File number 331.
Third reading. Discussion. I recognize the author of the bill, the member from Hennepin, Representative Edelson, to the bill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. House File 331 aligns Minnesota's laws with federal Tobacco 21 laws. The federal law was introduced and championed by Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell and signed into law by the President last year. While Tobacco 21 is now the law of the land under federal policy, our state tobacco age remains 18. In Minnesota, we rely on a strong community approach to tobacco age enforcement. Our cities and counties are responsible for distributing tobacco retail licenses. As a part of that licensing responsibility, they work in collaboration with retailers, law enforcement, youth to enforce the state tobacco age. We need this bill so we don't have some communities enforcing a state age of 18 while some are enforcing an age of 21. This bill makes it clear that there is only one tobacco age, and that is 21. Adopting statewide Tobacco 21 is urgently needed to provide clarity, accountability, and make it easier for our state and local partners. This bill makes several relevant and important changes to state law. It updates state tobacco definitions to include the latest products on the market. It updates state compliance check requirements to include 18, 19, and 20-year-olds. This bill updates state penalties to follow current best practices and align with federal law. Like many of you, I have advocated for Tobacco 21 for years, long before we had a federal policy. 3 years ago, I worked with a group of neighbors, Democrats and Republicans, doctors and nurses, coaches, parents, youth, law enforcement, and the city's public health to make sure that Edina was the first community in Minnesota to raise the tobacco age to 21. We came together because research shows that raising the tobacco age to 21 will prevent youth addiction and save lives. Nearly 95% of addicted youth have started, or addicted youth smoke, or adult smokers started before 21. So raising the age will help interrupt the cycle of addiction, death, and disease associated with tobacco use. 3 years later, the landscape has changed dramatically. Our teens are facing a tobacco epidemic fueled by trendy, flavored, high-nicotine e-cigarettes. The rates of teen vaping are astronomical and have erased nearly 2 decades of progress to reduce tobacco use. Meanwhile, our communities across Minnesota and the country have stood up for kids and worked to get tobacco products out of our middle and high schools by raising the tobacco age. I want to thank my co-authors, Democrats and Republicans from urban, suburban, and greater Minnesota communities. Thank you for leading this effort. Tobacco 21 is the right move for our state, and it's overwhelmingly popular. A recent poll found 74% of Minnesotans are in favor of Tobacco 21. The COVID pandemic is one more reason why we need to support strong public health, especially when it comes to our lungs. While we have much to learn about this virus, early studies show it can be particularly dangerous to people whose lungs are weakened by asthma, chronic disease, and smoking. Members, Minnesota is ready for Tobacco 21. Our local communities have led the way. Our federal partners made Tobacco 21 a priority. Law enforcement, school administrators, teachers, and youth all support. And many tobacco retailers and industry representatives. Now it is our state's turn to act and adopt this life-saving policy. It has been my honor to carry this bill, and I urge a yes vote today. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd be happy to stand for questions.
The member from Dakota, Representative Halverson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Representative Edelson, for being a champion for this really important policy. It's been amazing to see the evolution of tobacco policy in Minnesota and around the country. There was a time when something like this was considered to be controversial, and now it's very clear that this is the right move to make for public health, especially as we have seen the scourge of vaping kind of sweep across our state and sweep up our kids in a new way of being addicted to nicotine products. We know now that a quarter of all 11th graders are vaping. And when you look at the current public health crisis that we have and the need for us to make sure that we are as healthy as possible in protecting our lungs, we know that vaping and smoking put people at greater risk of illness and dying. So this is important policy for today. It's also important policy for the future. We were on such a wonderful downward trajectory in the state of Minnesota in youth tobacco use until these seductive e-cigarettes came onto the market. And they caught up our kids with their flavors and their advertising and their clever marketing, just like the tobacco companies of old had done. And this was the new investment in the future, in future customers for the tobacco companies. But by taking a stand and saying that Tobacco 21 is not only the law of the land, it is the law of Minnesota, and all our communities are going to adopt Tobacco 21, we are taking a stand to say we are not going to turn the youth of Minnesota over to big tobacco once again. So thank you, Representative Edelson. Thank you for everybody who worked on this bill on both sides of the aisle. The fact that this is bipartisan does such good things to my heart when we are working on the health, working for the health of our kids. That means a lot. And so with that, members, please vote yes, proudly.
The member from Itasca, Representative Lehman.
I would like to rise. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to rise today in support of this bill with a little personal story as to why I've been a supporter of the Tobacco 21 efforts from the beginning. Quitting tobacco is one of the hardest things a person will ever do. If you ask any former tobacco user, and most current ones, they'll say they wish they'd never started. As someone who's been there myself, I can tell you that I started young, and one factor that made it easier to start was that tobacco products were readily available. It was a local public health effort that actually served as a catalyst for me to quit almost 40 years ago. Polls show that the great majority of smokers do support Tobacco 21 because they know it will prevent others from being trapped by nicotine addiction. By applying the same common sense age restriction to tobacco that we apply to alcohol, we're going to make it a little harder for young people to get tobacco products and a little easier for them to go without it. Tobacco 21 is about prevention because it will result in fewer tobacco products in the hands of our middle school and high school students. This bill will clear up any confusion among retailers, local law enforcement, and people across our state, because we can say that the federal tobacco age is 21, and so is Minnesota's. This bill today is supported by both Minnesotans for a smoke-free generation and the tobacco industry. And we look across the landscape, how things have changed over time. Actually, 43% of Minnesotans right now are in Tobacco 21 communities. So I am here today to lend my support and urge members for you to support this bill today. Thank you.
The member from Ramsey, Representative Moran.
Madam Speaker, members, menthol cigarettes like Cools and Newport and little cigars like Swisser's Sweet are still a huge problem. These products are lower priced, come in appealing flavors, and are heavily marketed towards youth, African Americans, and the LGBTQ communities. In communities of color and other diverse communities, tobacco use is still a huge problem. E-cigarettes use is also becoming widespread among kids of color. In 2019, Minnesota student survey showed that e-cigarettes rates are through the roof, especially for some of our most vulnerable students. Current use of tobacco products among bisexual students is 41%. Use by American Indian students is 28%. Tobacco use by students facing severe economic hardship is 41%. And finally, among those students bullied daily, 43% are using tobacco products. Our kids should be growing up strong and free from addiction, but they have been relentlessly targeted by the same industry that hooked so many of our parents and grandparents on cigarettes, including myself. I can't sit still and let this happen to this generation. I smoked, and I started young. Like so many young people, I was lured into smoking because it looked cool and it was a status thing. I quit, and I am so fortunate. It is our job to protect our kids and young people from an industry that profits from addiction and disease. Preventing youth tobacco use will help us stand up for kids of color and advance health equity. Tobacco 21 isn't the end of the road, but it is a meaningful step that we can take today. Please support all our kids and vote yes on Tobacco 21. Thank you.
The member from Wright, Representative O'Neill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I too have a personal story. Even before I was born, my mother smoked, my father smoked, and my older brother smoked, all in the home. My mother smoked when I was an infant. My brother moved out, but my dad continued to smoke probably 2 or 3 packs a day, one after another, until I was 13 years old. I'm literally short of breath right now because I have asthma so badly from years and years and years at a very young age from multiple people smoking around me. I am incredibly supportive of the concept of changing the tobacco age to 21. What I'm not supportive of is this particular version of the bill. Because who are we penalizing? We are penalizing 4 times higher the businesses that sell them. Sometimes they make mistakes. If they make a mistake, now they're going to pay 4 times more in penalties. I don't know that that's the approach that we should be taking right now, to penalize businesses for making a mistake. And flip side, we're actually removing the penalty. We're taking away the petty misdemeanor from the adult, still under 21, 18, 19, 20-year-old person who is in possession of tobacco products or purchased tobacco products. We're taking that away and saying, just do community service or do this program. Please don't do that. We don't want you to do that. I don't understand how this is supposed to reduce smoking among young people. If it did, I'd be all for it. I literally can't breathe right now because my asthma has been so bad in the springtime. And it's a direct result of many adults smoking around me when I was a child. I agree with Tobacco 21 in concept. I don't agree with how this particular bill has been crafted. Why are we punishing the businesses who have made a mistake and sold to someone under 21? And for those reasons, I will be voting no today. Thank you, Madam Speaker and members.
The member from Blue Earth, Representative Munson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I rise in opposition to this bill today. We heard this bill in Health and Human Services, Finance, and I brought up several concerns about the bill that have not been addressed. This bill prohibits anyone from entering a tobacco store that is under the age of 21. Now, in many of the metropolitan areas, tobacco convenience stores have been forced to create a separate store attached to the convenience store to sell tobacco products, and it is a separate business. This means that many people that work in the tobacco stores or the convenience stores would lose their jobs if this bill becomes law. There are 16, 17, 18, 19, 20-year-olds that work in retail stores, both in tobacco stores and convenience stores. And this bill goes into law, they'll lose their jobs. It also prevents parents from bringing children into a convenience store that sells tobacco or a tobacco store. Now, I'm not trying to hand out Parent of the Year awards here, but forcing parents to leave their children in their cars outside of stores, even if they're infants, there is no exception in this bill for children to just be in the store. There's not tobacco being consumed in the stores. This bill also doesn't address people under 21 smoking. It addresses people under 21 from purchasing tobacco. And as Representative O'Neill pointed out, it removes the petty misdemeanor from possession and basically just targets the purchase of. It also doesn't address people who currently smoke, who are underage and are going to have difficulty going through withdrawal from tobacco. It doesn't have exceptions for people that you're 18 years old, you can serve our country, but you can't buy tobacco. I think this bill goes too far. It does not have the appropriate exceptions, and for that I'm voting no. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The member from Sibley, Representative Gruenhagen.
Madam Chair. Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I tend to lean in support of the bill. One of the things in our country is the promotion of addiction to young people. And I've seen that happen so often in society, whether it's school board member or when I was in jail ministry, and the devastating consequences. Also, we know that if any lay person has studied brain development, we know that your brain doesn't fully develop till into your 20s, where you can properly weigh the consequences of your decision. Another thing is the school board. One of the things that's well known is that 18-year-olds will bring addictive products that they can buy legally 2 to 3 to 4 years below them. So when you have 18-year-olds as seniors in a school, you tend to create a pipeline to younger students who are more easily addicted, and even though they're illegal from buying such a product. So, I'm going to vote yes on this bill, but I do understand the concerns brought up by Representative O'Neill, Munson, and others, and I hope that it's fixed in a conference committee, and if it's not, I'm probably going to change my vote. But for today, I want to send that message, and we have every right as government to regulate addictive products. And thank you for bringing this forward, Representative Edelson, but I do strongly suggest that you fix some of the concerns that have been brought up. Thank you.
The member from Dakota, Representative Garofalo.
And thank you, Madam Speaker. And I'm wondering if the author would yield just for a couple of quick questions.
She will yield. Representative Garofalo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And to the author, can you clarify for members, does this bill have minimum mandatory penalties for both the individuals who are working in these smoke shops, as well as the sellers of tobacco, as well, the actual shop owners?
Representative Edelson.
Madam Speaker, Representative Garofalo, the fines, and I appreciate this being brought up, the fines on businesses are only imposed if they sell to a minor or if they sell to someone that is under 21. So with that, there would be a fine. But if they do not, there is not one. So with that, if I can clarify anything, please let me know.
Representative Garofalo.
Thanks, Madam Speaker. And for the author, yes, so my question was, are there minimum mandatory penalties if a convenience store, if an employee sells to a 20-year-old as opposed to a 21-year-old, does that employee have a minimum mandatory penalty? Likewise, does the store itself have a minimum mandatory penalty under your statute?
Representative Edelson.
Madam Speaker, Representative Garofalo, for a sale clerk, if the person is under 21, it would be a $50 administrative fee with no criminal fine. If the person is over 21, it would be a petty misdemeanor.
Representative Garofalo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Representative Edelson, how about for the individual stores that are selling it? What is their minimum mandatory penalty if they make one mistake, two mistakes, or perhaps three mistakes over the course of 3 years?
Representative Edelson.
Madam Speaker, Representative Garofalo, for the first violation, it is $300. For the second violation, it is $600. Let's see, and after that, it is $1,000. Again, those fines would not be imposed unless the clerk or the store sells to a minor. So these businesses would not receive these fines. The sales clerk would not receive that, and many of these sales clerks lose their job if that actually happens. So, yes.
Representative Garofalo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. And it's important for members listening to this debate to understand what the current law is. Again, if you're under 18 currently, that number is $75 versus $200 for the second violation. So this increases it to $300, $600, and the $600 in the second violation, $1,000 in the third violation. And in addition to that, it lengthens the sort of probationary period from 2 years to 3 years. So if you are a convenience store that makes one mistake a year, one mistake of selling to perhaps a very old-looking 20-year-old who's buying a pack of cigarettes, if one employee makes that mistake once a year, you're going to be subject to a $1,000 fine. And in addition to that, you're going to have a minimum mandatory suspension of selling of all tobacco products for a week. That's the consequences of making one mistake. Now, I thought that the progressive left in our state was opposed to minimum mandatory sentences. That's why I'm using that term, but that's what this bill does, is it imposes minimum mandatory sentences. So I think we all share the goal of reducing tobacco usage, but we also recognize that sometimes government gets carried away, and this is a bill that gets totally carried away. I would urge members to vote no on its final passage. Thank you.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Freiberg.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you, Representative Freiberg.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm glad. I just want to take this as an opportunity to respond to a few of the points that have been raised recently by other members. So first of all, to the issue of monetary fines. These are not mandatory minimum sentences. That's kind of a term used related to incarceration, but these are fines. There are fines currently in existence. They've been in law for 23 years and they have never been raised. So this does impose some fines to retailers who sell tobacco to kids and to young adults. But it just raises the fines to a reasonable level that probably comes close to accounting for inflation. As I said, they've not been raised in 23 years. Representative Munson mentioned, he stated that this bill would not allow parents to go into convenience stores with their kids. That's not correct. There is a limitation for tobacco product shops, and that's a term that's defined very specifically in law. It's currently in law. It's only shops that derive 90% or more of their gross revenue from the sale of tobacco and related products. And it only applies to the Clean Indoor Air Act. So all this bill does is raise the age in that existing provision from 18 to 21. A convenience store generally does not derive 90% of its gross revenue from the sale of tobacco products. So parents, even if this passes in its current form, parents will still be able to go into convenience stores with their kids. Finally, I want to address the issue of possession, use, and purchase. Representative O'Neill raised this. So increasing the tobacco sales age is not about punishing our kids. It's about protecting them from a lifetime of addiction. So penalties for underage purchase, use, or possession of tobacco products have not been proven to reduce youth tobacco use. And they're not included in the federal Tobacco 21 law either. So by not including those, we are just mirroring the federal law that President Trump signed into law. Most retailers are responsible, but purchase, use, and possession penalties divert focus from addressing the few retailers that are irresponsible and the tobacco industry, which has a long history of targeting youth. These penalties also might increase negative interactions between young people of color and law enforcement. There's a clear consensus from national health organizations like the American Cancer Society, the American Heart Association, and the American Lung Association that Tobacco 21 policies should eliminate these penalties. These organizations, as well as Minnesotans for a Smoke-Free Generation, oppose Tobacco 21 policies that penalize youth for the possession, use, or purchase of tobacco products. This bill puts responsibility where it properly belongs, and that's on those few irresponsible retailers who do sell tobacco to kids and to young adults. Members, this bill should be an easy bill to get done this year. We need to pass it so it's crystal clear that our state tobacco age is 21. Medical professionals worry about tobacco use because brain development continues into the early 20s. Youth are more susceptible to addiction because their brains are still forming. Nicotine in any form harms the adolescent brain, interrupting learning and priming young brains for addiction to cigarettes and other substances. Tobacco addiction is real and it's devastating to so many Minnesota families, but there is help available. Every Minnesota resident, including kids and 18, 19, and 20-year-olds affected by Tobacco 21, can access free Quit Tobacco resources. Minnesota's Quit Partner program even offers a new youth program called My Life, My Quit. Sometimes I hear concerns from colleagues about border issues. This just makes it, the nationwide law makes it clear that Tobacco 21 is the law of the land regardless of what side of the border you live on. Our kids are relying on us to help them live healthy lives free from addiction. And our retailers and communities are relying on us to provide clear guidance on federal law to help them succeed in keeping us healthy and safe. Please join me in voting yes on this very common sense bill.
Any further discussion on House File 331? The author of the bill, the member from Hennepin, Representative Edelson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. Tobacco 21 is not about punishing our kids. It's about preventing addiction. This bill, I've been working with so many youth, and as you know, Lori Halverson had mentioned, 11% of 8th graders, according to the 2019 student survey, reported using vapes. 16% of 9th graders, 26% of 11th graders. We have an epidemic on our hands. Kids said, over 76 of the kids that took the student survey reported they did not know how addictive they didn't know how addictive it was, and they found themselves in a very bad place. We are here as lawmakers to protect our youth. As a mom, I want to stand up and make sure that we are protecting our youth. I urge a yes vote today.
The clerk will take the roll on House File 331.
Acom.
Acom, aye.
Acom, aye. Albright.
Albright, no.
Albright, no. Anderson.
Anderson, no.
Anderson, no. Backer.
Backer, yes.
Backer, aye. Bonner. Bonner, aye. Barr. Barr, no. Baker.
Baker, aye.
Baker, aye. Becker, Finn. Becker, Finn. Bennett.
Bennett, no.
Bennett, no. Bernardi.
Bernardi, aye.
Bernardi, aye. Bierman.
Bierman, aye.
Bierman, aye. Bow.
Oh, no.
Bow, no. Brand.
Brand, yes.
Brand, aye. Cantrell.
Cantrell, aye.
Cantrell, aye. Carlson, A.
Carlson, A, aye.
Carlson, A, aye. Carlson, L.
Carlson, L, aye.
Carlson, L, aye. Christensen.
Christensen, aye.
Christensen, aye. Claflin.
Claflin, aye.
Claflin, aye. Considine.
Considine, aye.
Considine, aye. Daniels.
Daniels, no.
Daniels, no. Doubt. Doubt, no. Davids.
No.
Davids, no. Davney.
Dabney, aye.
Davney, aye. Dehn. Dehn, aye. Damath. Damath, aye. Detmer.
Detmer, aye.
Detmer, aye. Drazkowski.
Guskowski, no.
Drazkowski, no. Eklund.
Eklund, aye.
Eklund, aye. Edelson. Edelson, aye. Elkins.
Elkins, aye.
Elkins, aye. Erickson.
Erickson, no.
Erickson, no. Fabian.
Fabian, no.
Fabian, no. Fisher.
Fisher, aye.
Fisher, aye. Franzen.
Franson, yes.
Franzen, aye. Freiberg.
Freiberg votes yes.
Freiberg, aye. Garofalo.
Garofalo votes no.
Garofalo, no. Gomez.
Gomez, aye.
Gomez, aye. Green.
Green, no.
Green, no. Grossel.
Grossel, nay.
Grossel, no. Gruenhagen.
Gruenhagen, aye.
Gruenhagen, aye. Gunther.
Gunther, no.
Gunther, no. Haley.
Haley, aye.
Haley, aye. Halverson. Halverson, aye. Hamilton.
Hamilton, aye.
Hamilton, aye. Hanson.
Hanson, aye.
Hanson, aye. Hassan.
Hassan, aye.
Hassan, aye. Hausman.
Hausman, aye.
Hausman, aye. Heinrich.
Heinrich, no.
Heinrich, no. Heinzman. Heinzman, no. Her.
Her, aye.
Her, aye. Hertos.
Hertos, no.
Hertos, no. Hornstein.
Hornstein, aye.
Hornstein, aye. Howard.
Howard, aye.
Howard, aye. Hewitt.
Hewitt, aye.
Hewitt, aye. Johnson.
Johnson, no.
Johnson, no. Jordan.
Jordan, aye.
Jordan, aye. Jurgens, excused. Keel.
Aye.
Keel.
Jurgens, aye.
Jurgens, aye. Keel.
Keel, no.
Keel, no. Cleavorn.
Seaborn, aye.
Cleavorn, aye. Cagle.
Cagle, aye.
Cagle, aye. Considine. Kotyza-Witthuhn.
Kotyza-Witthuhn, aye.
Kotyza-Witthuhn, aye. Kosnick.
Kosnick, no.
Kosnick, no. Kreshaw.
Kreshaw, no.
Kreshaw, no. Kunish-Podine. Kunish-Podine, aye. Lehman.
Lehman, aye.
Lehman, aye. Lee. Lee, aye. Lesch.
Lesch, aye.
Lesch, aye. Liebling.
Liebling, aye.
Liebling, aye. Lean. Lean.
Lean, aye.
Lean, aye. Lilly.
Lily, aye.
Lilly, aye. Lippert.
Lippert, aye.
Lippert, aye. Lislegard.
Lislegard, aye.
Lislegard, aye. Long.
Long, aye.
Long, aye. Lucero.
Aye. Long, aye. Lucero. Lucero, no.
Lucero, no. Lewick.
Lewick, aye.
Lewick, aye. Mahoney.
No.
Mahoney.
Mahoney, no.
Mahoney.
Mahoney, no.
Mahoney, no. Man, excused. Mariani.
Mariani, aye.
Mariani, aye. Marquardt.
Marquardt, aye.
Marquardt, aye. Mason.
Mason, aye.
Mason, aye. McDonald.
McDonald, no.
McDonald, no. Mecklin.
Mecklin, nay.
Mecklin, no. Miller.
Miller, aye.
Miller, aye. Moeller.
Moeller, aye.
Moeller, aye. Moran.
Moran, aye.
Moran, aye. Morrison. Morrison, aye. Munson.
Munson, no.
Munson, no. Murphy.
Murphy, aye.
Murphy, aye. Nash, excused. Nelson, M.
Nelson M. Aye.
Nelson M. I. Nelson N.
Nelson N. No.
Nelson N. No. No. Nor.
Aye.
Nornis.
Nornis, no.
Nornis, no. Novotny.
Novotny, no.
Novotny, no. O'Driscoll, no. Olson.
Olson, aye.
Olson, aye. O'Neill.
O'Neill, no.
O'Neill, no. Pulowski.
Pulowski, aye.
Pulowski, aye. Purcell.
Purcell, aye.
Purcell, aye. Petersburg.
Petersburg, aye.
Petersburg, aye. Pearson.
Pearson, aye.
Pearson, aye. Pinto.
Pinto, aye.
Pinto, aye. Poppy.
Poppy, aye.
Poppy, aye. Poston.
Poston, aye.
Poston, aye. Pryor.
Pryor, aye.
Pryor, aye. Quam. Quam. Richardson. Richardson, aye. Robbins. Robbins, aye. Runbeck. Runbeck, aye. Sandell.
Aye.
Sandell.
Sandell, aye.
Sandell, aye. Sandsted.
Sandsted, aye.
Sandsted, aye. Sauke.
Sauke, aye.
Sauke, aye. Schumacher.
Schumacher, no.
Schumacher, no. Schultz.
Schultz, aye.
Schultz, aye. Scott. Scott, no. Stevenson.
Stevenson, aye.
Stevenson, aye. Sundin.
Sundin, aye.
Sundin, aye. Swazinski.
Swazinski, no.
Swazinski, no. Tabke.
Tadke, aye.
Tabke, aye. Tice.
Tice, no.
Tice, no. Torkelson.
Torkelson, no.
Torkelson, no. Erdahl.
Erdahl, aye.
Erdahl, aye. Vang.
Vang, aye.
Vang, aye. Vogel.
Vogel, no.
Vogel, no. Wagenius.
Wagenius, aye.
Wagenius, aye. Wozlowick.
Wozlowick, aye.
Wozlowick, aye. West.
West, no.
West, no. Winkler. Winkler, aye. Wolgamott.
Wolgamott, aye.
Wolgamott, aye. Zhang Jie.
Xiong J. Aye.
Zhang Jie, aye. Zhang Ti.
Young T, aye.
Zhang Ti, aye. Joachim.
Joachim, aye.
Joachim, aye. Speaker Hartman. Speaker Hartman, aye. Runbeck changes from aye to nay. Not that? Becker
I'd like to
Finn.
make sure my vote was done correctly.
Considine is aye. Considine, aye. Becker Finn.
Thank you.
Okay. Quam. Quam.
There being 89 ayes and 41 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to. The next bill on the calendar for today is House File 4582. The clerk will report the bill.
House File number 4582, number 3 on the calendar for today, an act relating to human services, the first engrossment.
There are no amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, House File number 4582.
Third reading. I recognize the author of the bill, the member from Dakota, Representative Halverson, to describe the bill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. House File 4582 is a bill that has resulted from work that had been done with the other body and with the governor's office when we were working to rapidly respond to economic issues surrounding this COVID crisis. And the action of the bill is to provide a one-time $500 payment to families that are currently participating in MFIP, the Minnesota Family Investment Program. The money comes directly from the federal government. It is money that currently exists in the state coffers through the TANF funds, the Temporary Assistance for Needy Families. And this is vital funding for families to provide economic security, and it is also a very important tool for us to provide some economic stimulus in the state of Minnesota. 27,000 Minnesota families rely on MFIP, including 55,000 children. Data from DHS and Dehn show that a large percentage of the current MFIP families recently lost a job in the hotel, restaurant, or retail sectors prior to the COVID timeline layoffs, but in close proximity to that as businesses were starting to ramp down because customers were afraid to be showing up. MFIP really serves the state's most vulnerable. Think about these income numbers I'm going to give you. Typical MFIP family makes about $15,000 a year for a family of 3. Imagine your family surviving on that. And now put a global pandemic on top of that. When you can't access things like job retraining, when you can't access our local workforce centers. Our workforce centers are across the state are in support of this legislation, and I did email an electronic copy of their letter of support. This provides a really important lifeline to families who can't avail themselves of other ways to work their way out of poverty. MFIP is a really successful program. Families have the ability to stay on MFIP for up to 60 months. There's a lifetime cap of 60 months. Most people are on that far less, about half the time. And so we know that families are able to move. This is truly a bridge. It's truly a bridge to work and a bridge to education and a bridge out of poverty. But it keeps a roof over our families' heads, and it keeps food on the table. And at a time when these resources are so very precious, these families really need that. Now keep in mind where those dollars are going to get spent. They're going to go directly back into the economy. They're going to go to landlords because people are going to pay their rent. They're going to go to the local grocery store because they have to buy milk and food for their table. They're going to go to purchase diapers and other family necessities. So that money is going to get used and go directly back into our local economies. It's important to think about family security during this time. It's important all the time. That's why we have this important, successful program set up in the state of Minnesota. During this time, families are more vulnerable than ever, and we have a choice in this legislature. We can help them from going over the edge of that vulnerability, from losing a house, from not being able to feed their kids. We can make that difference with this one-time $500 payment, and we won't spend a dime of our state money to do it, because all of that money is going to come directly from the feds for the temporary assistance for needy families. And these are families that are in need. These are what these dollars were designed to do. All we have to do is loosen up the dollars in order to do that. Members, there is a small administrative appropriation that goes along with this bill of $92,000 that will be eligible for the federal COVID dollars, so the state can get paid back from this as well for any administrative costs that they incur from this. And with that, members, I stand for questions.
Discussion to House File 4582. The member from Ramsey, Representative Kunesh Padin.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. I'm here on the floor today to ask you to support House File 4582. 25 years ago, I thought I was in the crisis of my lifetime. After a series of unfortunate events, I found myself unable to apply for a teaching job without my license, my savings gone, without a steady income, and 3 young children. I was in trouble. I had no other choice than to reach out to the state of Minnesota, and they were there for me. Without MFIP, I would surely have lost my house and not been able to provide for my kids. Now I know that this is the crisis of our lifetime. It's a crisis of the century. Our state employment shows that 2/3 of the parents that received MFIP prior to the COVID pandemic worked in hotels or restaurants or in retail. They were personal care attendants, or they were working in temporary jobs. Those were the first industries that were hit the hardest at this time of the pandemic. And since those were working in low-wage part-time jobs, they didn't qualify for unemployment. And at this stressful time, once again, they are barely getting by on the wages that they might have made. I'm asking you to vote in support of providing this small cash boost through MFIP, our state's unemployment insurance fund for our low-wage workers. Right now, a minimum wage worker accessing MFIP receives about $632 a month in temporary cash, while a minimum wage worker accesses the newly created pandemic unemployment insurance and will receive an estimated $3,200 a month for 4 months with the federal boosted benefits. If giving out this $500 this one time gives you heartburn, think of this as Representative Halverson said, as an economic stimulus. Minnesota has unspent Federal Reserve TANF money, temporary assistance for needy family funds, to be used in a crisis, and if ever there was a crisis, this is it. A one-time $500 emergency payment to 27,000 families in Minnesota, caring for 55,000 children statewide, would be an incredible boost to all of our economies, to every town, to every city, to every county across our state. If you do the math, I won't have you take out a pencil and paper today, but if you do the math, $500 to 27,000 families equals $13,500,000 pouring into our economy. That's a lot of money. And it means that a family could purchase a laptop or a computer so their kids can stay connected for distance learning or to meet up with their family or their friends. It means that while a family can't rent a lake cabin in Detroit Lakes or Alexandria, they could buy a fishing license to support the DNR, get a fishing rod, rent a boat from one of those resort owners, and get out on the lake. It might mean that they could grab the best donuts in Minnesota in Cold Spring, or they could get a delicious Val's Greasy Burger in St. Cloud, or a pie at Betty's, or a barbecue at John Hardy's in Rochester. It means that those kids might get new summer school or summer clothes, since the secondhand stores are shuttered. Maybe it means a bike or a scooter for a kid who's going stir crazy and needs to work their wiggles out. Maybe it means just a small bit of relief for parents who have their utilities, their rent, their mortgage, their car and insurance payments, their kids' safety nagging in the back of their heads as they try to figure out how to weather this storm. Right here, right now, we can authorize Minnesota to avail a small portion of those TANF dollars, those reserve funds that are there for emergencies. We can add Minnesota to the list of other states in making bold leadership on behalf of all of our working families statewide. I urge you to vote for this bill.
Further discussion? The member from Dakota, Representative Halverson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. As you have heard, this is vitally important legislation, and we all have the opportunity to make a huge difference in the lives of people who need it most. So I urge a yes vote.
The member from Isanti, the Minority Leader, Representative Dowd.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. Would the author yield for a question?
She will yield. Representative Dowd.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Can you tell me why these funds were cut? Why folks aren't receiving these dollars?
Representative Halverson. Madam Speaker, the MFIP is a program that has had a long history in the state of Minnesota. It hasn't been cut, and we just know that these families receive ever so little assistance. And during this time, it's very clear that we know that so many families are in crisis, and the ability to provide more assistance exists currently within our state government because we have a current balance in the TANF reserves, money that the feds have given us to assist families in need. And so because we have those dollars available, we have the ability to provide this one-time assistance to the families that are the most economically vulnerable in the state of Minnesota. And as Representative Kunesh-Podein said, we'll spend a little over $13 million. There'll still be $15 million in the TANF funds in reserve, so that we will also be able to respond to future needs in the state.
Representative Dowd.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you for clearing that up. I thought there was for some reason these folks were being cut, but I assume now from your response that they're receiving the same amount that they have always received. You know, this is something, you know, that I'm certain has been a DFL position forever, even prior to the pandemic. Last year, the legislature increased the funds to these families by $100 each per month. And I apologize, but my information says that there is actually a coming structural deficit in this fund. Not to mention the state has a $2.4 billion deficit currently projected for the current biennium. It's unfortunate that Democrats want to use this pandemic as an opportunity to give bonuses to welfare recipients. Folks that are receiving these funds, if they were recently unemployed, qualify for all of the unemployment benefits and all of the federal benefits that go along with that. This is something the state cannot afford, and these folks have not received less money because of this pandemic. So I would encourage members to vote no.
Members, customarily the last two speakers are the Minority Leader and the Majority Leader, but under these circumstances, I will accommodate someone who just let us know that she would like to speak. The member from Douglas, Representative Franson.
Madam Speaker. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I think at this time I'll pass. Thank you.
The member from Hennepin, the Majority Leader, Representative Winkler.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, this is a vital economic security measure that is required it's not required, it's a good idea in a pandemic. It's a good idea when families are suffering extreme economic duress and the normal ways of life are not as accessible, they're not as affordable, and they're more difficult for a lot of people. We have been focused this week on making sure that families who have PCAs in their household are able to get a little bit extra money for the work that they're doing. We have made sure that small businesses can get access to capital for short-term loans to get them through the pandemic. We've been focused on renters and landlords. We've been focused on a whole range of people whose lives have been disrupted by the pandemic and for whom an additional a bit of resource from the state of Minnesota can help them get through this, cross this bridge and get to another place on the other side of the pandemic. The destruction that we will be creating with economic austerity measures is going to be much greater than it would be if we can make smart investments now, use tax dollars wisely now to help make sure that families are not pushed to the brink and that businesses and communities are not pushed to the brink during the pandemic. We can get through this moment. We can help people come back on the other side and build a stronger state together. And this bill is part of that larger package of bills that will help Minnesota succeed and survive in these difficult times. I would ask for a green vote, members, and I believe that by acting together in this body, the Senate certainly is ready to take this up. The funds come from the federal government. We can help boost local economies, we can help secure local families, and we can help all Minnesotans succeed better by passing this bill today.
The clerk will take the roll on House File 4582.
Acom.
Acom, aye.
Acom, aye. Albright.
Albright, no.
Albright, no. Anderson.
Anderson, no.
Anderson, no. Backer.
Backer, no.
Backer, no. Bonner. Bonner, aye. Barr. Barr, no. Baker.
Baker, no.
Baker, no. Becker, Finn.
Becker Finn, yes.
Becker, Finn, aye. Bennett.
Bennett, no.
Bennett, no. Bernardi.
Bernardi, aye.
Bernardi, aye. Bierman.
Bierman, aye.
Bierman, aye. Bow. Bow, no. Brand.
Brand, yes.
Brand, aye. Cantrell.
Cantrell, aye.
Cantrell, aye. Carlson, A.
Carlson, A, aye.
Carlson, A, aye. Carlson, L.
Carlson, L, aye.
Carlson, L, aye. Christensen.
Christensen, aye.
Christensen, aye. Claflin.
Claflin, aye.
Claflin, aye. Considine.
Considine, aye.
Considine, aye. Daniels.
Daniels, no.
Daniels, no. Doubt. Doubt, no. Davids.
Davids, no.
Davids, no. Davney. Davney. Dehn. Dehn, aye. Damuth. Damuth, no. Detmer.
Detmer, no.
Detmer, no. Drazkowski.
Ruskowski, no.
Drazkowski, no. Eklund.
Eklund, aye.
Eklund, aye. Edelson. Edelson, aye. Elkins.
Elkins, aye.
Elkins, aye. Erickson.
Erickson, no.
Erickson, no. Fabian.
Fabian, no.
Fabian, no. Fisher.
Fisher, aye.
Fisher, aye. Franson.
Franson, no.
Franson, no. Freiberg.
Freiberg votes yes.
Freiberg, aye. Garofalo.
Garofalo votes no.
Garofalo, no. Gomez.
Gomez, aye.
Gomez, aye. Green.
Green, no.
Green, no. Grossel.
Russell, no.
Grossel, no. Gruenhagen.
Gruenhagen, no.
Gruenhagen, no. Gunther.
Gunther, no.
Gunther, no. Haley.
Haley, no.
Haley, no. Halverson. Halverson, aye. Hamilton.
Hamilton, no.
Hamilton, no. Hanson.
Hanson, aye.
Hanson, aye. Hassan.
Hassan, aye.
Hassan, aye. Hausman.
Hausman, aye.
Hausman, aye. Heinrich.
Heinrich, no.
Heinrich, no. Heinzman. Heinzman, no. Her.
Her, aye.
Her, aye. Hertas.
Hertas, no.
Hertas, no. Hornstein.
Hornstein, aye.
Hornstein, aye. Howard.
Howard, aye.
Howard, aye. Hewitt.
Hewitt, aye.
Hewitt, aye. Johnson.
Johnson, no.
Johnson, no. Jordan.
Jordan, aye.
Jordan, aye. Jurgens.
Jurgens, no.
Jurgens, no. Keel.
Keel, no.
Keel, no. Cleavorn.
Cleaborn, aye.
Cleavorn, aye. Cagle.
Cagle, aye.
Cagle, aye. Kotyza-Witthuhn.
Kotyza-Witthuhn, aye.
Kotyza-Witthuhn, aye. Kosnick.
Cosmic, no.
Kosnick, no. Kresha.
Grisha votes no.
Kresha, no. Kunish-Podine. Kunish-Podine, aye. Lehman.
Lehman, no.
Lehman, no. Lee. Lee, aye. Lesch.
Lesch, aye.
Lesch, aye. Liebling.
Liebling, aye.
Liebling, aye. Lean.
Lean, aye.
Lean, aye. Lilly.
Lily, aye.
Lilly, aye. Lippert.
Lippert, aye.
Lippert, aye. Lislegard.
Listlegard, no.
Lislegard, no. Long.
Long, aye.
Long, aye. Lucero.
Aye. Lucero.
You are unmuted.
Lucero, no.
Lucero, no. Lewick.
Lewick, no.
Lewick, no. Mahoney.
Mahoney, aye.
Mahoney, aye. Man excused. Mariani.
Mariani, aye.
Mariani, aye. Markwart.
Markwart, aye.
Markwart, aye. Mason.
Mason, aye.
Mason, aye. McDonald.
McDonald, no.
McDonald, no. Mecklin.
Mecklin, nay.
Mecklin, no. Miller.
Miller, no.
Miller, no. Moeller.
Muller, aye.
Moeller, aye. Moran.
Moran, aye.
Moran, aye. Morrison. Morrison, aye. Munson.
Munson, no.
Munson, no. Murphy.
Murphy, aye.
Murphy, aye. Nash, excused. Nelson M.
Nelson M., aye.
Nelson M, aye. Nelson N.
Nelson N, no.
Nelson N, no. New. New, no. Nor.
Nor, aye.
Nor, aye. Nornis.
Nornis, no.
Nornis, no. Novotny.
Novotny, no.
Novotny, no. O'Driscoll. O'Driscoll, no. Olson.
Olson, aye.
Olson, aye. O'Neill.
O'Neill, no.
O'Neill, no. Pulowski.
Pulowski, aye.
Pulowski, aye. Purcell.
Purcell, aye.
Purcell, aye. Petersburg.
Petersburg, no.
Petersburg, no. Pearson.
Pearson, no.
Pearson, no. Pinto.
Pinto, aye.
Pinto, aye. Poppy.
Poppy, aye.
Poppy, aye. Poston.
Poston, no.
Poston, no. Pryor.
Pryor, aye.
Pryor, aye. Quam.
Guam, no.
Quam, no. Richardson. Richardson, aye. Robbins. Robbins, no. Runbeck. Runbeck, no. Sandell.
Sandell, yes.
Sandell, aye. Sandsted.
Samstead, aye.
Sandsted, aye. Sauke.
Sauke, yes.
Sauke, aye. Schumacher.
Schumacher, no.
Schumacher, no. Schultz.
Schultz, aye.
Schultz, aye. Scott. Scott, no. Stevenson.
Stevenson, aye.
Stevenson, aye. Sundin.
Sundin, aye.
Sundin, aye. Swazinski. Swazinski. Tabke.
Tabke, aye.
Tabke, aye. Tice.
Tice, no.
Tice, no. Torkelson.
Torkelson, no.
Torkelson, no. Erdahl.
Erdahl, no.
Erdahl, no. Vang.
Aye.
Vang, aye. Vogel.
Vogel, no.
Vogel, no. Wagenius.
Virginia, aye.
Wagenius, aye. Wozlowick.
Wozlowick, aye.
Wozlowick, aye. West.
West, no.
West, no. Winkler. Winkler, aye. Walgamot.
Wolgamott, aye.
Walgamot, aye. Zhang J.
Song J, aye.
Zhang J, aye. Zhang T.
Zhang T, aye.
Zhang T, aye. Joachim.
Joachim, aye.
Joachim, aye. Speaker Hartman. Speaker Hartman, aye. Davney. Davney.
Davney, aye.
Davney, aye. Swazinski.
Swazinski, no.
Swazinski, no.
Swazinski, no.
There being 73 ayes and 59 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to. Representative Dowd.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Point of parliamentary inquiry.
State your point of parliamentary inquiry.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The bill that we just passed was House File 4582. Can you tell me what the Senate companion is to that bill?
Representative Dowd, there's no companion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Our majority leader just stood at the microphone and said that the Senate was ready to take this bill up. We have very little time left in this session. The governor's emergency powers end on Wednesday. We as a legislature need to be ready to step up and co-govern with him to keep Minnesotans safe during this pandemic. I think it's incredibly disingenuous to mislead us into thinking
Representative Dowd, as a former speaker, you know you're out of order.
Point of parliamentary inquiry.
State your point of parliamentary inquiry.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to know why we were told that the Senate was ready to take this up when there isn't a Senate companion. Has there been some adjustment to the rules that would allow this bill to be taken up over there without a companion?
Representative Dowd, the Senate can pick up the House file and move it. Similar to a Senate file that came over, we could pick up and move that without having a companion.
Madam Speaker.
For what purpose do you rise?
Point of parliamentary inquiry.
State your point of parliamentary inquiry.
And that can happen after deadlines?
It's my understanding that would be an issue for the Senate to look at their rules and their deadlines. Representative Dowd.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Maybe the majority leader could just clear this up. Does he have some information about why he said the Senate is ready to take this bill up?
Representative Dowd, you're out of order. Next bill on the calendar for the day is Senate File 2939. The clerk will report the bill.
Senate File 2939, number 4 on the calendar for the day, an act relating to health occupations.
I recognize the member from Hennepin, the author of the bill, Representative Morrison.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Members, Senate File 2939 is a health licensing bill that makes technical amendments to the boards of medical practice, occupational therapy, social work, and dentistry. Lastly, it includes a provision that provides an allowance for para and MSRS beneficiaries to resume work without affecting benefits during the COVID emergency. And Rep. Bonner will speak to that last provision. The Board of Medical Practice provisions amend individual practice acts for professions regulated by the board to remove unnecessary authorization of criminal background check fees, which are already authorized. It also clarifies that a person holding a license, whether active or inactive due to expiration for non-payment of renewal fees, may be granted cancellation if the licensee is not the subject of a pending complaint investigation or disciplinary proceeding. A license is canceled after 2 years of non-renewal if it is not subject to a pending review, investigation, or disciplinary action. It eliminates ambiguity by clarifying that the 7-year statute of limitations for investigating complaints requires a complaint or report to be received by the board within 7 years from the date of commission of some portion of the conduct complained of or reported on. The Board of Occupational Therapy amends sections of the Practice Act implemented in 2018 with board separation from MDH to modernize language and processes. It removes redundant and unnecessary language and updates to current nationally accepted standards. It streamlines processes for temporary licensure and requirements for supervision and examination. And it converts to birth month renewal cycle and clarifies education requirements. The Board of Social Work amends sections of the Practice Act to create housekeeping, technical, and policy improvements, modernizes, reorganizes, and simplifies language, and clarifies and adds definitions. It also updates board member qualifications and assures a diverse board. It improves licensee mobility, reduces unnecessary barriers to practice, and increases opportunities for retirees. And finally, it repeals obsolete language. The Board of Dentistry provisions simplify the licensure display of requirements for dentists, dental hygienists, dental therapists, and dental assistants practicing in Minnesota. And then I will defer to Representative Bonner. Representative Bonner.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, members, and especially to Dr. Morrison for all of her fine work on this bill. I want to say a special thank you, of course, to Senators Kiffmeyer and Hayden for their support and help in getting this through on the Senate. I also want to make sure that we're clear that this bill is the result of a joint effort and a great deal of work from PARA, the Public Employees Retirement Association, the Minnesota State Retirement System, the Legislative Commission on Pensions and Retirement, which is a bipartisan, bicameral body tasked with overseeing pension funds and regulation, the Office of the County Attorney, the Governor and his staff, as well as numerous nurses behind the scene who have helped contribute to this legislation. As healthcare organizations began to ramp up in preparation for the peak of the pandemic, the issue of staffing has risen to the top. We know that in other states, staffing has become an issue as employees have fallen ill, and those who remain are asked to step up and do more to fill in the gaps. Minnesota, in doing so, these workers put their own health and that of their families at greater risk. Minnesota, however, is fortunate to have a deep bench of exceptional healthcare professionals, doctors, nurses, and other badly needed healthcare workers that are operating today on a phased out or post-retirement option. In other words, we have a wealth of semi-retired and retired individuals ready to fill in the gaps today for our healthcare system and for a wealth of recently licensed retired staff that can be tapped to aid in these staffing efforts. These experienced professionals are already equipped with the extraordinary skills and expertise which are urgently needed to fill these gaps due to illness or provide backup for those on the front lines of the pandemic. These workers have vast knowledge in areas like emergency room care, urgent care, triage, and ICU. They are already familiar with staff and internal operating procedures. To be concise, they can step up with little or no training required in a crisis situation. but we must ensure that their pension eligibility and payments are not penalized at this critical time. We must care for those who care for us. These are people like my mom, a veteran nurse of over 44 years at HCMC, and colleagues of hers like Sandra, Pam, and Mary Jo, just to name a few. These are women and men that are working at the bedside of our loved ones, providing critical care, comfort, and guidance and compassion for families and for patients. These heroes lead with compassion for their patients, calm reassurance for their families, and have a fierce loyalty to their fellow doctors, nurses, and support staff, and make what may be the worst day of someone's life the best day based on the outstanding level of care that they receive. That said, members, for these everyday heroes that are willing and able to step up in a crisis, we want to eliminate any deterrent that they may encounter to answering this critical call to service for Minnesota and its citizens. And with that, I urge your support.
There are no amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, Senate File number 2939.
Third reading. Any further discussion to the bill? The clerk will take the roll on Senate File 2939.
Acom.
Acom, aye.
Acom, aye. Albright.
Albright, aye.
Albright, aye. Anderson.
Anderson, aye.
Anderson, aye. Backer.
Backer, aye.
Backer, aye. Bonner. Bonner, aye. Barr. Barr, aye. Baker.
Baker, aye.
Baker, aye. Becker, Finn.
Becker Finn, aye.
Becker, Finn, aye. Bennett.
Bennett, aye.
Bennett, aye. Bernardi. Bernardi. Bierman.
Bierman, aye.
Bierman, aye. Bowl. Bowl, aye. Brand.
Brand, aye.
Brand, aye. Cantrell.
Cantrell, aye.
Cantrell, aye. Carlson, A.
Carlson, A, aye.
Carlson, A, aye. Carlson, L.
Aye.
Carlson, L, aye. Christensen.
Christensen, aye.
Christensen, aye. Claflin.
Claflin, aye.
Claflin, aye. Considine.
Considine, aye.
Considine, aye. Daniels.
Daniels, aye.
Daniels, aye. Doubt. Doubt, aye. Davids.
David, aye.
Davids, aye. Davney.
Davney, aye.
Davney, aye. Dehn. Dehn, aye. Damath. Damath, aye. Detmer.
Detmer, aye.
Detmer, aye. Driscollowski.
Ruskowski, aye.
Driscollowski, aye. Eklund.
Eklund, aye.
Eklund, aye. Edelson. Edelson, aye. Elkins.
Elkins, aye.
Elkins, aye. Erickson.
Erickson, aye.
Erickson, aye. Fabian.
Fabian, aye.
Fabian, aye. Fisher.
Fisher, aye.
Fisher, aye. Franson.
Franson, aye.
Franson, aye. Freiberg.
Freiberg votes yes.
Freiberg, aye. Garofalo.
Garofalo, aye.
Garofalo, aye. Gomez. 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 Green.
Green, aye.
Green, aye. Grossel.
Grossel, aye.
Grossel, aye. Gruenhagen.
Gruenhagen, aye.
Gruenhagen, aye. Gunther.
Gunther, aye.
Gunther, aye. Haley.
Haley, aye.
Haley, aye. Halverson. Halverson, aye. Hamilton.
Hamilton, aye.
Hamilton, aye. Hanson.
Hanson, aye.
Hanson, aye. Hassan.
Hassan, aye.
Hassan, aye. Hausman.
Hausman, aye.
Hausman, aye. Heinrich.
Heinrich, aye.
Heinrich, aye. Heinzman. Heinzman, aye. Herr.
Her, aye.
Her, aye. Hertath.
Hertash, aye.
Hertath, aye. Hornstein.
Hornstein, aye.
Hornstein, aye. Howard.
Howard, aye.
Howard, aye. Hewitt.
Hewitt, aye.
Hewitt, aye. Johnson.
Johnson, aye.
Johnson, aye. Jordan.
Jordan, aye.
Jordan, aye. Jurgens.
Jurgens, aye.
Jurgens, aye. Keel.
Keel, aye.
Keel, aye. Cleavorn.
Cleavorn, aye.
Cleavorn, aye. Cagle.
Cagle, aye.
Cagle, aye. Kotyza-Witthuhn.
Kotyza-Witthuhn, aye.
Kotyza-Witthuhn, aye. Kosnick.
Cosmic, aye.
Kosnick, aye. Kreshaw.
Kreshaw, aye.
Kreshaw, aye. Kunish-Podine. Kunish-Podine, aye. Lehman.
Lehman, aye.
Lehman, aye. Lee. Lee, aye. Lesch.
Lesch, aye.
Lesch, aye. Liebling. Liebling. Lean.
Lean, aye.
Lean, aye. Lilly.
Lily, aye.
Lilly, aye. Lippert.
Lippert, aye.
Lippert, aye. Listagard.
Listagard, aye.
Listagard, aye. Long.
Long, aye.
Long, aye. Lucero.
Lucero, yes.
Lucero, aye. Lewick.
Lewick, aye.
Lewick, aye. Mahoney. Mahoney. Man, excused. Mariani.
Mariani, aye.
Mariani, aye. Marquardt.
Marquardt, aye.
Marquardt, aye. Mason.
Mason, aye.
Mason, aye. McDonald.
McDonald, aye.
McDonald, aye. Mecklen.
Meckland, aye.
Mecklen, aye. Miller.
Miller, aye.
Miller, aye. Moeller.
Moeller, aye.
Moeller, aye. Moran.
Moran, aye.
Moran, aye. Morrison. Morrison, aye. Munson.
Munson, aye.
Munson, aye. Murphy.
Murphy, aye.
Murphy, aye. Nash, excused. Nelson M.
Nelson M., aye.
Nelson M, aye. Nelson N.
Nelson N, aye.
Nelson N, aye. New. New, aye. Nor.
Noor, aye.
Nor, aye. Nornis.
Nornis, aye.
Nornis, aye. Novotny.
Novotny, aye.
Novotny, aye. O'Driscoll. O'Driscoll, aye. Olson.
Olson, aye.
Olson, aye. O'Neill.
O'Neill, aye.
O'Neill, aye. Pulowski.
Pulowski, aye.
Pulowski, aye. Purcell.
Purcell, aye.
Purcell, aye. Petersburg.
Petersburg, aye.
Petersburg, aye. Pearson.
Pearson, aye.
Pearson, aye. Pinto.
Pinto, aye.
Pinto, aye. Poppy.
Poppy, aye.
Poppy, aye. Poston.
Poston, aye.
Poston, aye. Pryor.
Pryor, aye.
Pryor, aye. Quam. Quam, aye. Richardson. Richardson, aye. Robbins. Robbins. Runbeck. Runbeck, aye. Sandell. Sandell. Sandsted.
Sandsted, aye.
Sandsted, aye. Sauke.
Sauke, aye.
Sauke, aye. Schumacher.
Schumacher, aye.
Schumacher, aye. Schultz.
Schultz, aye.
Schultz, aye. Scott. Scott, aye. Stevenson.
Stevenson, aye.
Stevenson, aye. Sundin.
Sundin, aye.
Sundin, aye. Swazinski.
Swazinski, aye.
Swazinski, aye. Tabke.
Tabke, aye.
Tabke, aye. Tice.
Tice, aye.
Tice, aye. Torkelson.
Torkelson, aye.
Torkelson, I. Erdahl.
Erdahl, aye.
Erdahl, I. Vang.
Bang, aye.
Vang, I. Vogel.
Vogel, aye.
Vogel, I. Wagenius.
Aye.
Wagenius, I. Wozlowick.
Wozlowick, aye.
Wozlowick, I. West.
West, aye.
West, I. Winkler. Winkler, I. Wolgamott.
Wolgamott, aye.
Wolgamott, I. Zhang J.
Zhang J, aye.
Zhang J, I. Zhang T.
Zhang T, aye.
Zhang T, I. Joachim.
Joachim, aye.
Joachim, I. Speaker Hartman. Speaker Hartman, I. Bernardi.
Bernardi, aye.
Bernardi,
Bernardi,
I.
aye.
Gomez. Gomez.
Gomez, aye.
Gomez, I. Liebling.
Aye.
Liebling, I. Mahoney. Mahoney. Robbins. Robbins. Sandell.
Aye.
Sandell.
Sandell, aye.
Sandell, I.
There being 130 ayes and 0 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to. The next bill on the calendar for the day is House File 3356. The clerk will report the bill.
House File number 3356, number 7 on the calendar for the day, an act relating to state government, the first engrossment.
I recognize the member from Olmsted, Representative Sauke, to describe the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House File 3356 updates obsolete references related to the state register and modifies the due date and requirements for the capital events report. Section 1 eliminates the requirement that the state register is mailed to the public library in each county. The state register has been available online since 1990, and libraries are no longer interested in receiving a paper copy. It also reduces the number of paper copies which must be sent to the Legislative Reference Library and the State Law Library from 10 copies to 1, a measure supported by both libraries. Section 2 changes the due date of the capital events report from August 1st to September 15th to allow sufficient time to compile the information for the end of the fiscal year. It also limits the report to events for which a fee was actually collected to more closely match the origin of the report which the administration began producing in 2017, along with its new authority to collect such fees.
There are no amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, House File number 3356.
Third reading. Discussion to the bill. Seeing none, the clerk will take the roll on the bill.
Acom.
Acom, aye.
Acom, I. Albright.
Albright, aye.
Albright, I. Anderson.
Anderson, aye.
Anderson, I. Backer.
Backer, aye.
Backer, I. Bonner. Bonner, I. Barr. Barr, I. Baker.
Baker, aye.
Baker, I. Becker, Finn.
Becker, Finn, aye.
Becker, Finn, I. Bennett.
Bennett, aye.
Bennett, I. Bernardi.
Bernardi, aye.
Bernardi, aye. Bierman.
Bierman, aye.
Bierman, aye. Bow. Bow, aye. Brand.
Brand, aye.
Brand, aye. Cantrell.
Cantrell, aye.
Cantrell, aye. Carlson, A.
Carlson, A, aye.
Carlson, A, aye. Carlson, L.
Carlson, L, aye.
Carlson, L, aye. Christensen.
Christensen, aye.
Christensen, aye. Claflin.
Claflin, aye.
Claflin, aye. Considine.
Considine, aye.
Considine, aye. Daniels.
Daniels, aye.
Daniels, aye. Doubt. Doubt, aye. Davids.
David's, aye.
Davids, aye. Davney.
Davney, aye.
Davney, aye. Dehn. Dehn, aye. Damath. Damath, aye. Detmer.
Detmer, aye.
Detmer, aye. Driscollowski.
Druskowski, aye.
Driscollowski, aye. Eklund.
Eklund, aye.
Eklund, aye. Edelson. Edelson, aye. Elkins.
Elkins, aye.
Elkins, aye. Erickson.
Erickson, aye.
Erickson, aye. Fabian.
Fabian, aye.
Fabian, aye. Fisher.
Fisher, aye.
Fisher, aye. Franzen.
Franson, aye.
Franzen, aye. Freiberg.
Freiberg votes yes.
Freiberg, aye. Garofalo.
Garofalo, aye.
Garofalo, aye. Gomez.
Gomez, aye.
Gomez, aye. Green.
Green, aye.
Green, aye. Grossel.
Grossel, aye.
Grossel, aye. Gruenhagen.
Gruenhagen, aye.
Gruenhagen, aye. Gunther.
Gunther, aye.
Gunther, aye. Haley.
Haley, aye.
Haley, aye. Halverson. Halverson, aye. Hamilton.
Hamilton, aye.
Hamilton, aye. Hanson.
Hanson, aye.
Hanson, aye. Hassan.
Hassan, aye.
Hassan, aye. Hausman.
Hausman, aye.
Hausman, aye. Heinrich.
Heinrich, aye.
Heinrich, aye. Heinzman. Heinzman, aye. Her.
Her, aye.
Her, aye. Hertos.
Hertos, aye.
Hertos, aye. Hornstein.
Hornstein, aye.
Hornstein, aye. Howard.
Howard, aye.
Howard, aye. Hewitt.
Hewitt, aye.
Hewitt, aye. Johnson.
Johnson, aye.
Johnson, aye. Jordan.
Jordan, aye.
Jordan, aye. Jurgens.
Jurgens, aye.
Jurgens, aye. Keel.
Keel, aye.
Keel, aye. Cleavorn.
Cleavorn, aye.
Cleavorn, aye. Cagle.
Cagle, aye.
Cagle, aye. Kotyza-Witthuhn.
Kotyza-Witthuhn, aye.
Kotyza-Witthuhn, aye. Kosnick.
Cosmic, aye.
Kosnick, aye. Kreshaw.
Kreshaw, aye.
Kreshaw, aye. Kunish-Podine. Kunish-Podine, aye. Lehman.
Lehman, aye.
Lehman, aye. Lee. Lee, aye. Lesch.
Lesch, aye.
Lesch, aye. Liebling.
Liebling, aye.
Liebling, aye. Lean.
Lean, aye.
Lean, aye. Lilly.
Lily, aye.
Lilly, aye. Lippert.
Lippert, aye.
Lippert, aye. Listlegard.
Litzlegard, aye.
Listlegard, aye. Long.
Long, aye.
Long, aye. Lucero.
Lucero, yes.
Lucero, aye. Lewick.
Lewick, aye.
Lewick, aye. Mahoney.
Mahoney, aye.
Mahoney, aye. Man, excused. Mariani.
Mariani, aye.
Mariani, aye. Marquardt.
Marquardt, aye.
Marquardt, aye. Mason.
Mason, aye.
Mason, aye. McDonald.
McDonald, aye.
McDonald, aye. Mecklen.
Meckland, aye.
Mecklen, aye. Miller.
Miller, aye.
Miller, aye. Moeller.
Moeller, aye.
Moeller, aye. Moran.
Moran, aye.
Moran, aye. Morrison. Morrison, aye. Munson.
Munson, aye.
Munson, aye. Murphy.
Murphy, aye.
Murphy, aye. Nash, excuse. Nelson M.
Nelson M. I.
Nelson M. I. Nelson N.
Nelson N, aye.
Nelson N. I. New. New, I. Nor.
Nor, aye.
Nor, aye. Nornis.
Nornis, aye.
Nornis, aye. Novotny.
Novotny, aye.
Novotny, aye. O'Driscoll. O'Driscoll, aye. Olson.
Olson, aye.
Olson, aye. O'Neill.
O'Neill, aye.
O'Neill, aye. Pulowski.
Pulowski, aye.
Pulowski, aye. Purcell.
Purcell, aye.
Purcell, aye. Petersburg.
Petersburg, aye.
Petersburg, aye. Pearson.
Pearson, aye.
Pearson, aye. Pinto.
Pinto, aye.
Pinto, aye. Poppy.
Poppy, aye.
Poppy, aye. Poston.
Poston, aye.
Poston, aye. Pryor.
Pryor, aye.
Pryor, aye. Quam.
Quam, aye.
Quam, aye. Richardson. Richardson, aye. Robbins. Robbins, aye. Runbeck. Runbeck, aye. Sandell.
Sandell, aye.
Sandell, aye. Sandsted.
Sandsted, aye.
Sandsted, aye. Sauke.
Sauke, aye.
Sauke, aye. Schumacher.
Schumacher, aye.
Schumacher, aye. Schultz.
Schultz, aye.
Schultz, aye. Scott. Scott, aye. Stevenson.
Stevenson, aye.
Stevenson, aye. Sundin.
Sundin, aye.
Sundin, aye. Swazinski.
Swazinski, aye.
Swazinski, aye. Tabke.
Tabke, aye.
Tabke, aye. Tice.
Tice, aye.
Tice, aye. Torkelson.
Torkelson, aye.
Torkelson, aye. Erdahl.
Erdahl, aye.
Erdahl, aye. Vang.
Aye.
Vang, aye. Vogel.
Vogel, aye.
Vogel, aye. Wagenius.
Wagenius, aye.
Wagenius, aye. Wozlowick.
Wozlowick, aye.
Wozlowick, aye. West.
West, aye.
West, aye. Winkler. Winkler, aye. Wolgamott.
Wolgamott, aye.
Wolgamott, aye. Zhang Jie.
Zhang Jie, aye.
Zhang Jie, aye. Zhang Ti.
Zhang Ti, aye.
Zhang Ti, aye. Joachim.
Joachim, aye.
Joachim, aye. Speaker Hortman. Speaker Hortman, aye.
There being 132 ayes and 0 nays, the bill is passed and it's titled agreed to. The next bill on the calendar for the day is House File 4044. The clerk will report the bill.
House File number 4044, number 8 on the calendar for the day, an act relating to legislative enactments.
There are no amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, House File number 4044.
Third reading. I recognize the member from Ramsey, the author of the bill, Representative Lesch.
House File 44. Thank you, Madam Speaker. House File 44 is the annual revisor's bill. Minnesota Statutes 3C04 directs the revisor to prepare and submit bills to the legislature that clarify and correct statutes. This is the bill that does that, and it's generally known as the revisor's bill. This makes technical changes to statutes and laws. The revisor's office goes through a rigorous screening before its introduction to make sure that none of these corrections in the bill are substantive or controversial. And to do this, they check with various state agencies, legislative commissions, House Research, and Senate Counsel. So there are three provisions. It's a 110-page bill. There are 3 articles, and the first article is the lion's share of it. 89 pages of the 110 pages is Article 1. It corrects erroneous, obsolete, or incomplete cross-references and internal references, either by striking references to repealed or invalid provisions, or as applicable, supplying the correct, updated, or complete citation. Article 2 is only 17% of the bill. It revises health records definitions, and it contains cross-references, or corrects cross-references in Minnesota statutes due to the amending and relettering of paragraphs contained in section 144.291, subdivision 2. Now, Article 3 is the smallest part. It's only 2 pages, and it corrects references in Minnesota Statutes Chapter 13, which is the Minnesota Data Practices Act, to data provisions codified outside of the Data Practices Act. That's it. There's no controversial provisions in it, nothing substantive. It's got a clean bill of health, and I would ask for members' support.
Any discussion to House File 4044, the Revisor's Bill? Seeing none, the clerk will take the roll.
Acom.
Acom, aye.
Acom, aye. Albright.
Albright, aye.
Albright, aye. Anderson.
Anderson, aye.
Anderson, aye. Backer.
Backer, aye.
Backer, aye. Bonner. Bonner, aye. Barr. Barr, aye. Baker.
Baker, aye.
Baker, aye. Becker, Finn.
Becker, Finn, aye.
Becker, Finn, aye. Bennett.
Bennett, aye.
Bennett, aye. Bernardi.
Bernardi, aye.
Bernardi, aye. Bierman.
Bierman, aye.
Bierman, aye. Bow. Bow, aye. Brand.
Brand, aye.
Brand, aye. Cantrell.
Cantrell, aye.
Cantrell, aye. Carlson, A.
Carlson, A, aye.
Carlson, A, aye. Carlson, L.
Carlson, L, aye.
Carlson, L, aye. Christensen.
Christensen, aye.
Christensen, aye. Claflin.
Claflin, aye.
Claflin, aye. Considine.
Considine, aye.
Considine, aye. Daniels.
Daniels, aye.
Daniels, aye. Doubt. Doubt, aye. Davids.
Davids, aye.
Davids, aye. Davney.
Davney, aye.
Davney, aye. Dean. Dean, aye. Damath. Damath, aye. Detmer.
Detmer, aye.
Detmer, aye. Driscowski.
Druskowski, aye.
Driscowski, aye. Eklund.
Eklund, aye.
Eklund, aye. Edelson. Edelson, aye. Elkins.
Elkins, aye.
Elkins, aye. Erickson.
Erickson, aye.
Erickson, aye. Fabian.
Fabian, aye.
Fabian, aye. Fisher.
Fisher, aye.
Fisher, aye. Franzen.
Franson, aye.
Franzen, aye. Freiberg.
Freiberg votes yes.
Freiberg, aye. Garofalo.
Garofalo, aye.
Garofalo, aye. Gomez.
Gomez, aye.
Gomez, aye. Green.
Green, aye.
Green, aye. Grossel.
Gross. Aye.
Grossel, aye. Gruenhagen.
Gruenhagen, aye.
Gruenhagen, aye. Gunther.
Gunther, aye.
Gunther, aye. Haley.
Haley, aye.
Haley, aye. Halverson. Halverson, aye. Hamilton.
Hamilton, aye.
Hamilton, aye. Hanson.
Hanson, aye.
Hanson, aye. Hassan. Hassan. Hausman.
Hausman, aye.
Hausman, aye. Heinrich.
Heinrich, aye.
Heinrich, aye. Heinzman. Heinzman, aye. Her.
Her, aye.
Her, aye. Hertos.
Hertos, aye.
Hertos, aye. Hornstein.
Hornstein, aye.
Hornstein, aye. Howard.
Howard, aye.
Howard, aye. Hewitt.
Hewitt, aye.
Hewitt, aye. Johnson.
Johnson, aye.
Johnson, aye. Jordan.
Jordan, aye.
Jordan, aye. Jurgens.
Jurgens, aye.
Jurgens, aye. Keel.
Keel, aye.
Keel, aye. Cleavorn.
Cleavorn, aye.
Cleavorn, aye. Cagle.
Cagle, aye.
Cagle, aye. Kotyza-Witthuhn. Kotyza-Witthuhn, aye. Kosnick.
Osnick, aye.
Kosnick, aye. Kresha.
Kresha, aye.
Kresha, aye. Kunish-Podine. Kunish-Podine, aye. Lehman.
Lehman, aye.
Lehman, aye. Lee. Lee, aye. Lesch.
Lesch, aye.
Lesch, aye. Liebling.
Liebling, aye.
Liebling, aye. Lean.
Lean, aye.
Lean, aye. Lilly.
Lily, aye.
Lilly, aye. Lippert.
Lippert, aye.
Lippert, aye. Listlegard.
Listlegard, aye.
Listlegard, aye. Long.
Long, aye.
Long, aye. Lucero.
Lucero, no.
Lucero, no. Lewick. Lewick.
Lewick, aye.
Lewick, aye. Mahoney.
Mahoney,
Mahoney, aye. Man, excuse. Mariani.
Mariotti, aye.
Mariani, aye. Markwart.
Markwart, aye.
Markwart, aye. Mason.
Mason, aye.
Mason, aye. McDonald.
McDonald, aye.
McDonald, aye. Mecklin.
Meckland, aye.
Mecklin, aye. Miller.
Miller, aye.
Miller, aye. Moeller.
Moeller, aye.
Moeller, aye. Moran.
Moran, aye.
Moran, aye. Morrison. Morrison, aye. Munson.
Munson, aye.
Munson, aye. Murphy. Murphy. Nash, excuse. Nelson M.
Nelson M. Aye.
Nelson M. I. Nelson N.
Nelson N, aye.
Nelson N. I. New. New. I. Nor.
Noor, aye.
Nor. I. Nornis.
Nornis, aye.
Nornis. I. Novotny.
Novotny, aye.
Novotny. I. O'Driscoll. O'Driscoll. I. Olson.
Olson, aye.
Olson. I. O'Neill.
O'Neill, aye.
O'Neill. I. Pulowski.
Pulowski, aye.
Pulowski. I. Purcell.
Purcell, aye.
Purcell. I. Petersburg.
Petersburg, aye.
Petersburg. I. Pearson.
Pearson, aye.
Pearson. I. Pinto.
Pinto, aye.
Pinto. I. Poppy.
Poppy, aye.
Poppy. I. Poston.
Poston, aye.
Poston. I. Pryor.
Pryor, aye.
Pryor. I. Quam.
Quam, aye.
Quam. I. Richardson. Richardson. I. Robbins. Robbins. I. Runbeck. Runbeck. I. Sandell.
Sandell, aye.
Sandell. I. Sandsted.
Sandsted, aye.
Sandsted. I. Sauke.
Sauke, aye.
Sauke. I. Schumacher.
Schumacher, aye.
Schumacher. I. Schultz.
Schultz, aye.
Schultz. I. Scott. Scott. I. Stevenson.
Stevenson, aye.
Stevenson. I. Sundin.
Sundin, aye.
Sundin. I. Swazinski.
Swazinski, aye.
Swazinski. I. Tabke.
Tabke, aye.
Tabke. I. Tice.
Tice, aye.
Tice. I. Torkelson.
Torkelson, aye.
Torkelson. I. Erdahl.
Erdahl, aye.
Erdahl. I. Vang.
Vang, aye.
Vang. I. Vogel.
Vogel, aye.
Vogel. I. Wagenius.
Wagenius, aye.
Wagenius. I. Wozlowick.
Wozlowick, aye.
Wozlowick. I. West.
West, aye.
West. I. Winkler. Winkler. I. Walgamot.
Wolgamott, aye.
Walgamot. I. Zhang Jie.
Zhong Jie, aye.
Zhang Jie. I. Zhang Ti.
Zhong Ti, aye.
Zhang Ti. I. Joachim.
Joachim, aye.
Joachim. I. Speaker Hartman. Speaker Hartman. I. Hassan. Hassan.
Hassan, aye.
Hassan. I. Murphy. Murphy.
Murphy, aye.
Murphy. I.
There being 131 ayes and 1 nay, the bill is passed and its title agreed to. The next bill on the calendar for the day is Senate File 4091. The clerk will report the bill.
Senate File 4091, number 6 on the calendar for the day, an act relating to commerce, the first engrossment.
There are no amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, Senate File number 4091.
Third reading. To the bill, I recognize the author of the bill, the member from Hennepin, Representative Kotyza-Witthuhn.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, members, Senate File 4091 is a housekeeping proposal from the Department of Commerce, making technical changes and fixing incorrect cross-references, as well as making statutory license requirements uniform. The administration supports passage of Senate File 4091 as was passed off the Senate floor. Accepting the version as passed off the Senate floor makes 2 main changes in addition to the House's version, technical and housekeeping changes. 1, the Senate amended the department's National Association of Insurance Commissioners, or NAIC, Long-Term Care Guarantee Association Model Act. This bill was authored in the House by Representative Richardson, House File 4240, and I will ask her to speak to that provision shortly. The Senate also included clarification on the confidentiality of documents related to market conduct examinations overseen by the Commerce Department. This entire package is non-controversial. The proposals have been vetted with all the impacted industries over the past few months, and all items of concern that were raised have been removed from the bill or worked out amongst the various industries, as was in the case of the NAIC Model Act. It's important that we get this proposal passed this session because in addition to fixing smaller inconsistencies and adding clarification and alignment in statute, it also contains many provisions important to our industries, such as market conduct examinations. The bill clarifies that all documents pertaining to an insurance company's market conduct exam are considered confidential, including scheduling orders and related documentation, allowing state-regulated non-depository financial institutions applications for licenses and renewals to be made through the nationwide multi-state licensing systems and registry, NMLS, providing ease to application for Minnesota's licensees. This also allows financial institutions that work in multiple states the ability to renew their licenses in one central location instead of a state-by-state model. It also includes 3 non-controversial provisions for the appraisal management companies that Minnesota is required to adopt by the Federal Appraisal Subcommittee prior to its next review of Minnesota's AMC regulatory program, which is currently scheduled for this fall. I will now walk briefly through the technical and housekeeping provisions included in the bill. So, the bill clarifies pledging requirements for national banks acting as fiduciaries in Minnesota. This change aligns state codification with that of current federal law. This clarification ensures national banks pledge an appropriate amount of investment with the Minnesota Guaranty Fund. It allows for the application of currency exchange licenses to be made through the nationwide multi-state licensing system and registry. Clarifies the definition of a sales finance company in line with industry guidance, as well as modifies the branch location requirement to account more clearly for out-of-state branches. It aligns the definition of residential real estate with the definition used by federal SAFE Act law and the definition of residential mortgage loan with the definition used by the federal SAFE Act law. It fixes an inconsistency between the surety bond requirements for individual mortgage originators that exist within current statute and clarifies that it is the mortgage company who holds the bond, not the responsibility of the individual licensee. It fixes inconsistencies between insurance statutes as certificates of incorporation are no longer filed with the Secretary of State's office. It deletes a duplicative provision that had never been utilized and eliminates some possible issues regarding non-matching lines of authority. Fixes inconsistencies between insurance statutes, as plans of mergers are also no longer filed with the Secretary of State's office. It aligns the timeline for financial interest disclosure when the principal is in the transaction, a licensee or relative or business associate of the licensee currently required. requires a credit service organization to update their registration statement not later than 90 days after the date from which a change in the information occurs to not later than 30 days. This is consistent with other licenses. It amends the disclosure language for credit service organizations to be consistent with federal language, and it repeals the no transmit list. This law was written, the law as written, currently conflicts with data privacy requirements, and so in an effort to keep consumers identifying information safe, the department has never enforced this law since it was enacted. So finally, the proposal does now include Representative Richardson's House File 4240, the NAIC long-term care guarantee provision, and I would ask now that Representative Richardson speak to Article 2. Thank you.
The member from Dakota, Representative Richardson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, House File 4240 is a consumer protection bill expanding the Guaranty Association system to ensure that consumers that purchase insurance products are protected in the event of a company failure or insolvency. Recent insolvencies in the long-term care insurance industry have exposed significant gaps in risk for consumers and the overall insurance market. Also, because currently in Minnesota, HMOs are exempt, there's another critical gap for consumers as well. This bill promotes a solution to broaden the assessment base to create a larger safety net in the event of future insolvencies. Assessments will be split 50-50 between health insurance insurers and life insurers. Maximum benefits do not change under this bill, and HMOs are also added to the list of insurers that can offset assessments through tax offsets currently in Minnesota law. I would encourage a yes vote on this bill.
Further discussion to the bill. The member from Stearns, Representative O'Driscoll.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. And I would support a yes vote on this technical correction bill, but this actually started out as two bills, the Richardson bill and the Kotyza-Witthuhn bill. And as Chair Halverson knows of the Commerce Committee and as the Republican lead on that, I've been very forceful with her in trying to get the Richardson provision to the floor today, so I'm very excited to see that. And the Richardson provision has to do with the Minnesota Guaranty Association. What the Minnesota Guaranty Association does in this state is that any insurance company that's a life carrier or a health carrier who wants to be an admitted carrier, which means they want to have a certificate of authority to offer product here in the state of Minnesota, needs to go through a rigorous actuarial review in order to receive that licensure. And so you may say on a Saturday afternoon, why is this important? Well, it's important not only because it's a Saturday afternoon, but what we are finding ourselves in with the COVID-19 epidemic. You may once again be saying, how does this tie together? Well, we sell an awful lot of long-term care policies here in the state of Minnesota, which is a very darn good thing, because it means that individuals will be paying their own care or their own keep, if you will, for room and board when they need additional help, which means that the state of Minnesota, through our social service programs, will have to pay less. I've been a strong advocate since I've been in the legislature to increase tax credits for this particular provision for long-term care. And since long-term care is being written by health insurance companies and life insurance companies, changing this balance of who insures these folks should the carrier become insolvent or unable to pay their claims is more important today than it ever has been. Why? Because the statistics that we are seeing from the Minnesota Department of Health is that the vast majority of our COVID-19 patients in this state are in congregate living facilities, which is where you will find persons who are using long-term care insurance. We need to make sure that their policies and the benefits that were promised to them through the insurance companies continue to be provided. Let me say that again. More than the vast majority of the people who are contracting COVID-19 are in long-term care facilities here in the state of Minnesota. That means that the vast majority of Minnesotans who are out and about in the community are not contracting or dying, I should say, of COVID-19 related illnesses. I want to make sure that those individuals' policies stay solvent. And that's why this provision is an extremely important provision here in the state of Minnesota. That we make sure that the balance between life insurance and health insurance companies who do the underwriting and offering of these policies continue to remain solvent, and if they don't, that the Guaranty Association is there to provide those benefits. Members, I encourage a yes vote on this bill for those who are in congregate living facilities for COVID-19. Madam Speaker, members, thank you.
The member from Dakota, Representative Halverson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I'm sure we're going to have a lot of requests for people to join the Commerce Committee after getting to hear the exciting work that we get to do. It is a very fun committee, and I've been thrilled to be the chair of that committee. I want to say that the Richardson bill is here on the floor with us today because of the hard work that the author did in order to deal with stakeholder concerns and get the bill in a shape that was agreeable to everybody and work through a lot of details. And as you heard, we are not short on details when it comes to insurance law in the state of Minnesota. And so I want to congratulate Representative Richardson on doing that hard work and getting the bill in a shape that we are able to take it up today. And Representative Kotyza-Witthuhn did great work on the technical bill in Commerce. There's a lot of details to deal with, and we wanted to be sure that it was in good hands, and so I thank the author for taking on that challenge. And I think it's reassuring for all of us to see that during this terrible time, as we've been hearing, where people in our long-term care facilities are struggling, and our staff in long-term care facilities do not have access to PPP, and we haven't had access to testing in the greater community to make sure, to know kind of where the disease is and how it's moving through our communities, and that is beginning to change, that we as a body continue to come together and continue to do important work for today and for the future by diving into the minutia and diving into the details of Minnesota law to make sure that Minnesota consumers are protected. So, Madam Speaker, I ask members to vote yes.
Any further discussion to the bill? The member from Isanti, Representative Dowd.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and Representative Halverson. With all due respect, Representative O'Driscoll does find this sort of thing very exciting, and I would appreciate it if you would not burst his bubble.
Any further discussion to the bill? Representative Kotyza-Witthuhn.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I appreciate your support for this bill so we can fix any inconsistencies in Minnesota state statute.
Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll on this exciting bill.
Acom.
Acom, aye.
Acom, aye. Albright.
Albright, aye.
Albright, aye. Anderson.
Anderson, aye.
Anderson, aye. Backer.
Backer, aye.
Backer, aye. Bonner. Bonner, aye. Barr. Barr, aye. Baker.
Baker, aye.
Baker, aye. Becker, Finn.
Becker Finn, aye.
Becker, Finn, aye. Bennett.
Bennett, aye.
Bennett, aye. Bernardi.
Bernardi, aye.
Bernardi, aye. Bierman.
Bierman, aye.
Bierman, aye. Bow. Bow, aye. Brand.
Brand, yes.
Brand, aye. Cantrell.
Cantrell, aye.
Cantrell, aye. Carlson, A.
Carlson, A, aye.
Carlson, A, aye. Carlson, L.
Carlson, L, aye.
Carlson, L, aye. Christensen.
Christensen, aye.
Christensen, aye. Claflin.
Claflin, aye.
Claflin, aye. Considine.
Considine, aye.
Considine, aye. Daniels.
Daniels, aye.
Daniels, aye. Doubt. Doubt, aye. Davids.
David's, aye.
Davids, aye. Davney.
Davney, aye.
Davney, aye. Dehn. Dehn, aye. Damath. Damath, aye. Detmer.
Detmer, aye.
Detmer, aye. Driscowski.
Truskowski, aye.
Driscowski, aye. Eklund.
Eklund, aye.
Eklund, aye. Edelson. Edelson, aye. Elkins.
Elkins, aye.
Elkins, aye. Erickson.
Erickson, aye.
Erickson, aye. Fabian.
Fabian, aye.
Fabian, aye. Fisher.
Fisher, aye.
Fisher, aye. Franzen.
Franson, aye.
Franzen, aye. Freiberg.
Freiberg votes yes.
Freiberg, aye. Garofalo.
Garofalo votes aye.
Garofalo, aye. Gomez.
Gomez, aye.
Gomez, aye. Green.
Green, aye.
Green, aye. Grossel.
Rossel, aye.
Grossel, aye. Gruenhagen.
Gruenhagen, aye.
Gruenhagen, aye. Gunther.
Gunther, aye.
Gunther, aye. Haley.
Haley, aye.
Haley, aye. Halverson. Halverson, aye. Hamilton.
Hamilton, aye.
Hamilton, aye. Hanson.
Hanson, aye.
Hanson, aye. Hassan.
Hassan, aye.
Hassan, aye. Hausman.
Hausman, aye.
Hausman, aye. Heinrich.
Heinrich, aye.
Heinrich, aye. Heinzman. Heinzman, aye. Herr. Herr. Herr.
Her, aye.
Herr, aye. Hertos.
Hertos, aye.
Hertos, aye. Hornstein.
Hornstein, aye.
Hornstein, aye. Howard.
Howard, aye.
Howard, aye. Hewitt.
Hewitt, aye.
Hewitt, aye. Johnson.
Johnson, aye.
Johnson, aye. Jordan.
Jordan, aye.
Jordan, aye. Jurgens.
Jurgens, aye.
Jurgens, aye. Keel.
Keel, aye.
Keel, aye. Cleavorn.
Cleaborn, aye.
Cleavorn, aye. Cagle.
Cagle, aye.
Cagle, aye. Kotyza-Witthuhn. Kotyza-Witthuhn, aye. Kosnick.
Kosnick, aye.
Kosnick, aye. Kresha.
Kresha, aye.
Kresha, aye. Kunish-Podine. Kunish-Podine, aye. Lehman.
Lehman, aye.
Lehman, aye. Lee. Lee, aye. Lesch.
Lesch, aye.
Lesch, aye. Liebling.
Liebling, aye.
Liebling, aye. Lean.
Lean, aye.
Lean, aye. Lilly.
Lily, aye.
Lilly, aye. Lippert.
Lippert, aye.
Listlegard.
Listlegard, aye.
Listlegard, aye. Long.
Long, aye.
Long, aye. Lucero.
Lucero, yes.
Lucero, aye. Lewick.
Lewick, aye.
Lewick, aye. Mahoney.
Aye.
Mahoney, aye. Man, excused. Mariani.
Mariani, aye.
Mariani, aye. Markwart.
Marquardt, aye.
Markwart, aye. Mason.
Mason, aye.
Mason, aye. McDonald.
McDonald, I vote aye.
McDonald, aye. Mecklin.
Meckland, aye.
Mecklin, aye. Miller.
Miller, aye.
Miller, aye. Moeller.
Moeller, aye.
Moeller, aye. Moran. Moran. Morrison. Morrison, aye. Munson.
Munson, aye.
Munson, aye. Murphy.
Murphy, aye.
Murphy, aye. Nash, excused. Nelson M.
Nelson M, aye.
Nelson M, aye. Nelson N.
Nelson N, aye.
Nelson N, aye. New. New, aye. Nor.
Noor, aye.
Nor, aye. Nornis.
Nornis, aye.
Nornis, aye. Novotny.
Novotny, aye.
Novotny, aye. O'Driscoll. O'Driscoll, aye. Olson.
Olson, aye.
Olson, aye. O'Neill.
O'Neill, aye.
O'Neill, aye. Pulowski.
Pulowski, aye.
Pulowski, aye. Purcell.
Purcell, aye.
Purcell, aye. Petersburg.
Petersburg, aye.
Petersburg, aye. Pearson.
Pearson, aye.
Pearson, aye. Pinto.
Pinto, aye.
Pinto, aye. Poppy.
Poppy, aye.
Poppy, aye. Poston.
Poston, aye.
Poston, aye. Pryor.
Pryor, aye.
Pryor, aye. Quam.
Quam, aye.
Quam, aye. Richardson. Richardson, aye. Robbins. Robbins, aye. Runbeck. Runbeck, aye. Sandell.
Sandell, aye.
Sandell, aye. Sandsted.
Sandsted, aye.
Sandsted, aye. Sauke.
Sauke, aye.
Sauke, aye. Schumacher.
Schumacher, aye.
Schumacher, aye. Schultz.
Schultz, aye.
Schultz, aye. Scott. Scott, aye. Stevenson.
Stevenson, aye.
Stevenson, aye. Sundin.
Sundin, aye.
Sundin, aye. Swazinski.
Swazinski, aye.
Swazinski, aye. Tabke.
Tabke, aye.
Tabke, aye. Tice.
Aye. Tice, aye.
Tice, aye. Torkelson.
Torkelson, aye.
Torkelson, aye. Erdahl.
Erdahl, aye.
Erdahl, aye. Vang.
Vang, aye.
Vang, aye. Vogel.
Vogel, aye.
Vogel, aye. Wagenius.
Wagenius, aye.
Wagenius, aye. Wozlowick.
Wozlowick, aye.
Wozlowick, aye. West.
West, aye.
West, aye. Winkler. Winkler, aye. Wolgamott.
Wolgamott, aye.
Wolgamott, aye. Zhang Jie. Zhang Jie. Zhang Ti. Zhang Ti. Joachim.
Joachim, aye.
Joachim, aye. Speaker Hartman. Speaker Hartman, aye. Moran.
Moran, aye.
Moran, aye. Zhang Jie.
Zhang Jie, aye.
Zhang Jie, aye. Zhang Ti.
Zhang Ti, aye.
Zhang Ti, aye.
There being 132 ayes and 0 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to. Motions and resolutions. There are copies of the non-controversial motions not at the House desk today, but online. If there's no objection, we will take action on these motions first. Hearing no objection, the motions prevail. Announcements. Representative Winkler.
Madam Speaker, the Rules Committee will meet immediately following session.
Announcements. Representative Winkler.
Madam Speaker, when the House adjourns today, I move that when the House adjourns today, it adjourns until 9 a.m. Monday, May 11, 2020.
Representative Winkler moves that when the House adjourns today, it adjourns until Statehood Day, 9 a.m., Monday, May 11th. All those in favor, say aye. Those opposed, say no. The motion prevails. Representative Winkler.
Madam Speaker, I move that the House do now adjourn.
Representative Winkler moves that the House do now adjourn. All those in favor, say aye. Those opposed, say no. The motion prevails. The House stands adjourned until Statehood Day, 9 a.m., Monday, May 11th.